Here at Tabletop Time, we've been reminiscing over one of our biggest and most exciting projects that we ever did on the channel.
Yes, it is the Titan Graveyard, a huge theatrical centerpiece that we could play on and basically break titans on. And it was one of the greatest times we ever had on this channel, so we decided that we wanted to revisit, revamp, and put a fresh lick of paint on it for you.
We made 10 videos in this series using 5 different titans from Forge World. And so we decided to bring everything together in one concise video just for you guys.
So if you're a returning viewer or this is your first time checking out what is the deal with this channel, grab a thing of popcorn, sit down and enjoy the absolute madness that was the undertaking of this mammoth project.
So we've been thinking a lot about what it is to capture the fun of being YouTube creators and to make really cool projects again. So it was a perfect time to dive back into one of these great ones. So this has been edited down, we've cut off a lot of the fat, but not only that, Murray and I are actually going to journey to House of War, who sponsored the video in the first place and made it possible to go and visit the Titan board, see how it's fared, and also kind of reminisce and reflect over some of the things we learned over the project and see where it currently lives today, because we've never visited it since we finished it.
Yeah, maybe ask around some locals and see, how they enjoy seeing the board or playing on it on a daily basis. How about that?
And this video is also sponsored by Corvus Belly. We have something really cool to share with you, and they've got some awesome announcements. So without further ado, let's take you back to the start of the Titan board.
Transition.
Blah. Oh my god! Yeah!
This is what comes in the box, isn't it? I get my own arm guards.
You're such a goodie. So the work can begin. We actually have one Warlord and one Reaver that's arrived so far. We've got 2 Reavers still coming in all of their weapons. We have so much resin to clean and trim. Jen and Murray are basically becoming, well, workhorses all day, and I'm going to join them. So let's tackle this monstrous pile of Forge World. Hey Jen, how are you enjoying scrubbing everything?
It's a lot to clean, and these pieces are really huge, but look, it's kind of nice because I get to wash my hands at the same time and they smell really good.
And you're not getting soggy hand syndrome?
I'm taking breaks in between because of that reason, so I will wash a bunch of stuff and then I'll stop and go back to cutting out because David has told me a couple horror stories of people's skin peeling off.
Yeah, I used to work with kitchen hands and their entire hand skin could just come off.
Yeah, I don't really want that to happen.
Yeah.
This clipper's big enough. Oh, not really. Time to get a saw.
It's much nicer when you can just watch other people do it on YouTube. It sucks when it's you.
Murray, Jen! I have found a relic over which many fight.
Oh?
These bits of paper, I don't know, anyone who's out there and sees the second-hand market, these A4 card certificates that say you own a Titan, they have a number on them. These are used by people to signify that their Titan is legitimate, and a lot of people care about them. So sort of what I'm saying is if you have a recast Titan and want to sell it, hit me up. I'll sell you the certificate for $100. It'll really add value to your work. Alright, so what is the world that we are building? Horus Heresy Book 8 Mechanicum is an all-time favorite of mine. It's a fantastic book that explores the schism of Mars, where the Adeptus Mechanicum went against each other. They actually had a huge civil war. And central to this conflict is the battle between Legio Mortis and Legio Tempestus. That battle accumulates in a massive fight with multiple engine kills and some pretty memorable destruction on either side. So the pitch for this battlefield. We would like to make, for the top table, a battlefield on Mars that is set in the 40K universe, 10,000 years after the fall of these great titans. Melted into the ground by the larval flows of the magma city, these titan corpses loom out of the Martian sands, all of them intermingled together in a haunting titan graveyard. The ground is going to be scarred by the ancient explosions and destructive weapons unleashed by the Titan. If you're a fan of the Mechanicum book, please give your suggestions down below. We're going to be making this board to the best of our abilities. This should be our best build ever. This collection of boxes next to me is literally just the beginning. We have a Warlord Titan, 3 Reaver Titans, and their assembled weapons to throw around this board, destroy, integrate, and make the most impressive build we possibly can. And if you're waiting for us to play a game on it, you don't have to, because in fact, if you live in Australia or travel for tournaments like R40K, you can play on it. As we craft each part of the build, I'm definitely going to be focusing on elements centric to the build. And I'm going to be exploring the fun aspects of its lore while we build its memorial. So Murray, we've made a few of these boards and we've done a few various different types of them. The Cathedral actually didn't get a snazzy trim on it. It's just raw foam. I don't think we can do that for a board that's going to have to stand up to a lot of tournament play. I'm thinking a trim, a nice square trim that will protect the foam and go around the outside of the board like we did with the Age of Sigmar board.
Yeah, this is just a neat piece of MDF. Make it nice and uniform, make them all match up nicely as they're arrayed. There's going to be 3 pieces because each piece is going to be really heavy with Titans on it, so we're going to need that.
All right, so Murray, you're off to Bunnings Warehouse.
Sure am.
Lowest prices. No, we're not sponsored.
I'm back with the power of editing. We're going to cut the trim for our boards. So I've pre-measured these sheets. I'm going to cut them out, do the lengths, and then we'll do the widths, and then trim it up real nice at the corners so it looks very professional.
Murray?
What are you talking about?
Did you what is this? Murray!
Nothing happened.
Murray!
I don't know what you're talking
You absolute goose!
I thought you were spotting me.
That's on camera now. Murray, what are you doing?
I'm just fixing the table.
There's a boo-boo.
There is a boo-boo.
Fix the boo-boo. So we've recently got back from a much needed vacation. We all went on a cruise, not only Murray, Jen and I together, but also some friends and Rob, who old regulars of Tabletop Time will remember as well. We had a great time, and one of the things we did on this cruise was take some board games and other games. We took some Magic the Gathering, did a Final Fantasy draft, which was really fun, and we also took Warcrow Adventures. Now, if you're a fan of dungeon delving games, Warcrow Adventures is really cool with an app-based narrative management that talks through everything, while 4 people can enjoy the game dungeon delving with unique characters. And Warcrow has a brand new narrative-driven campaign box, which can serve as a starter box coming out right now. It's called Song of the Dormant, and it contains Feudum, a brand new faction to the game, that those kind of French-inspired blue characters there, and it also brings the Scions of Yaldabaoth, who were previously playable but as miniatures from Warcrow Adventures. They're now released and collectible for people who never got Warcrow Adventures, which is really cool. The box not only contains 2 packs of gorgeous miniatures, but it also contains a narrative campaign booklet running you through 6 missions and some awesome story to get you hooked in the world of Lindworm. It also contains a playmat and card terrain, dice, everything you need to actually start playing, which is something so often cut out or left by the wayside in other starter sets. Also, the rules for Warcrow are all available free online, as well as an army builder, so if you want to check out the rules before you commit to playing, you can do all that as well. And if you did back Warcrow Adventures or like those co-op dungeon delving games, the minis from that are compatible in your faction as heroes and mercenaries. We're actually going to Gen Con next week, thanks to Corvus Belly, and we'll be at their booth while they're launching this game. So if you want to see us at Gen Con and say hi and hang out, it'll be Murray and myself, and we'll be super excited to talk to you not only about Tabletop Time, but also about Warcrow and our plans to really start diving into this world. If you want to grab these boxes, there's never been a better time to try out Warcrow. There's actually a pre-order week bonus until August 4th. If you grab Warcrow as well as one of the new add-on packs, you get a free character, an exclusive character that comes along with those for that launch week only, or at Gen Con, of course, in person. But for now, we need to get back to reminiscing about the old Titan board and also preparing to fly to America. See you guys. Murray, hard at work?
Yeah.
2 seconds earlier.
Pew pew. Pew pew. Are you enjoying watching me work on grey piece after grey piece?
I'm enjoying not having to do it myself.
I mean, we've got piles of stuff, but to show how much we've done, this is all of the resin gates for all the pieces that we've done so far.
And there's boxes left. I mean,
Yeah.
we still haven't got 2 Reavers that
Yeah,
can drop down.
this is 1 Warlord and most of a Reaver. There's still 2 more Reavers.
So we're going to collect those gates for all of them and just see how much spare resin we get left
Yeah, gonna weigh it at the end just for fun, see how much, discarded resin there just is, which is ridiculous.
See how much Games Workshop is paying for postage.
Yeah, this already weighs more than my entire army box carry case, so...
Yeah, that's a couple of kilos at least.
All right, so we want to pitch this to you in a couple of set pieces that should be really easy to understand. One of the gorgeous central pieces of this board is going to be the legs of the Deus Tempestus, the legendary warlord titan and the oldest titan of Legio Tempestus. Now, this was pretty brutally eviscerated, and we imagine only its legs remain, and the last loyal titan left standing on Mars during the Schism of Mars. We thought it only fitting that the Mechanicus has built an awesome shrine around the legs to revere this fallen ancient god machine. This shrine will be built into a massive crater created by the shockwave of its reactor detonating. Up next, we want to take a fallen macro Gatling blaster from a Warlord Titan. So we're going to take that and we're going to have it built up into an embankment of old dried lava and the dunes of Mars. I'm going to design it as if it has fired as it's hit the ground, scoring a massive scar into the earth directly out from the barrels of the weapon. I really like how this is going to create a nice little line of sight blocking bit of terrain, as well as a trench works for models to move between on the table. A lot of our designs are going to be factoring in both rule of cool, but also tabletop balance as a tournament table. So we're going to try and make sure there's ample cover everywhere on the table for everyone equally. Probably the most ambitious set piece we have, as crazy as that is actually the Cord Reaver Titan. We don't know how we're going to do this, but we love the idea of melting a hole straight through the core of a Reaver Titan, but having its superstructure still holding firm. There is nothing of value left to salvage on this thing, and the beast is just standing slack and has been for 10,000 years. Picture a lot of rusted panels and desert sand battering up against this Reaver. It's going to be a really tall and dominant figure on the battlefield, and probably the tallest model on the battlefield, so it's going to be really fun to fight around this. Now, as for the second of our Reaver Titans, we're going to have this one toppled bodily into the ground. This is going to be a nice bit of area terrain as well as some line of sight blocking, as we have a Reaver fully collapsed face down in the dirt. Limbs splayed, heavy battle damage all over it, and half buried in the sweeping sands of Mars. I think this is going to be a piece to put towards the center of the battlefield, but of our builds, I also think it's probably going to be the simplest. Now, for the final Reaver, I'm actually really excited by this idea of Murray's. We're going to build up a corner of the board that has a nice bit of cliff face or maybe a mesa, some rock and stone. And then we have the Reaver Titan destroyed by multiple shots, but almost as if it has stumbled back and collapsed into the rock. And then 10,000 years of erosion and dirt buildup means it's going to really feel built into the earth itself. I think this will be another really towering and imposing part of the battlefield, and I'm super excited to make it. So these are just 5 of the obvious terrain features on the board that we're going to build, but we also bought plenty of weapon options, as well as we have the top half of the Warlord Titan to use as well. We're thinking of making that into the foe that the Deus Tempestus was fighting. I know we have a Warlord Titan's Ariok Power Claw, and I reckon it would be super cool to have those fingers splayed and extended, reaching into the sky, while the hand itself is buried in the dust. Before we can get started on any of these sweet dioramas and set pieces for this board, we got to keep working on some resin.
It never ends! There's so much resin! Oh my god! Ooh, a Reaver missile launcher. It's also like Christmas. I've always loved these things, but the Chaos one's like 100 times cooler. It's got like spiky missiles and stuff. Hey, something that is cool about this is the missiles are little independent nubs, so you can choose to have it like fully loaded, or like you fired some of them or something. I don't know. That's neat. I have got more resin to clean. It's basically washing up week here at Tabletop Time. But for today, the plan is to get 2 Titans built and start hacking them up so we can really start to focus on some awesome centerpiece terrain features for this board.
I was assigned to build the Warlord Titan, and Murray was about to set to work building out the board and getting that started. But before we could do that, we needed to really solidify our plan.
We've got to actually come up with ways to make this board work. So what I was maybe thinking is if we build the mountains up here, we can actually have a couple of mesas, so like rock outcroppings that are line of sight blocking here, and it can be collapsed into one of them. We put the gun, so that'll be built out of the ground. So that's actually a line of sight and an obstructor. So it's like fired, and then that way the trench works sort of diagonally across the board like that. How do we feel about Chord Reaver slightly like more, just slightly over there?
I want the opportunity to like have models running between its legs.
Yeah, it would be cool to be able to get vehicles through the legs. I don't know how the posing of a Reaver is going to work for that.
Sorry, team.
Thank you, Jen.
Ooh.
So Murray had a solid plan and so did I. It was time for me to work on a giant resin kit. And I have to say, this one was a bit of a surprise. I started to tackle the torso of the Warlord and thought, wow, I could really stretch this out into like 5 YouTube videos of me just building a Warlord Titan. But I thought, instead of that, what if I built 2 entire Titans in one video and basically just made it the backdrop to us planning our board better? One thing I loved about the Warlord Titan though, Jen, is I absolutely loved the higher level of detail. It is a dream of mine that Forge World will re-release the Warhound and the Reaver Titan. I've been a fan of Titans for a long time. I grew up playing Battletech and Mech Warrior games, and the Warhound Titan is my all-time favorite. I think it has a gorgeous silhouette, but the kits are starting to show their age, and one thing this Warlord kit has is a huge amount of greebling and engineering detail, and just attention to that detail in the fine areas that the earlier Titans lack.
I just picture this thing falling apart. It's so big and so heavy, it kind of terrifies me.
It's interesting that you say that, Jen, because we're lucky. This Warlord is becoming 2 Warlord Titans, in the sense that we're actually going to be cutting it in half just above the waist to look like the Deus Tempestus has gone critical and exploded. But we are going to be using the top of the Warlord to represent one of the traitor Legio Mortis Warlord Titans that was killed by the Deus Tempestus. It will be sunk into the dirt on the other side of the map. Now, I'm not going to beleaguer the point. We've got some nice footage of me building a Titan, and it is what you'd expect.
Alright, here I'm going to put in the slats that will be in between all of the different boards. We're basically making 3 separate boards entirely, and we want them to line up really nicely.
Now, splitting them into 3 is a really good way to make sure that each part is strong, but it also is really important for transportation. We're of course having to take this to a tournament, and it's going to be in a game store, so this being much more easier to take apart and carry with all the weight of Forge World resin on it will be a big boon.
And you can see here, I'm actually just jamming all the sheets together. I put the glue down, I'm just going to jam and sandwich the boards in between so they will be perfectly aligned. Alright, so we've done all the basic stuff, but we decided that we wanted some nice mountainous areas in the corners for a bit of a variety and visual interest. So I cut out the shape that I wanted on the mountainside, then I simply stenciled the polystyrene and had a go at it with the jigsaw as well, so they line up perfectly. Alright, so we're going for a kind of a mesa-ish look with, you can see all the different levels of strata and rock in the mountainside. And so I'm keeping to vaguely the same shape, but allowing for a bit of variation and randomness in there. I think that'll give it a really nice organic feel.
Yeah, and the front facing of the mountains at this stage is going to probably change a lot over the course of the project. We want most of the board to be playable area, so it'll be really fun coming up with ways to, whether by natural formation or scaffolding, allow these areas to also be playable.
Alright, I'm all done here. Time to go see what the other 2 are working on. Hello.
Hey, Murray.
What's happening?
I have basically finished assembling the torso of the Warlord Titan. I also literally just sliced my finger open on resin.
Good job.
What? Wait, Simba! It's been anointed. Murray!
We have a board. We have all the edging. It's all glued on.
This looks bigger than my childhood bed, by far.
Are these the colours we're going to paint it as well?
Lime green?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
This is looking good. I like the trim. Each piece is nice. When that's fully set, it's going to have a nice edge for gaming protection. So that's about the footprint. It's actually a bit smaller than we thought.
Things we never thought we'd say.
So what I'm thinking is we're going to cut the torso roughly in half to have the exploded Deus Tempestus over there. So then from sort of here up, we can embed into the foam, and then we can build up on these relatively flat surfaces with sort of like dust, dirt drifts. You'll be able to actually like play with your infantry moving across the surface of the Titan. And I believe you can fit a 40 mil base down this central gap. So you could have a squad of Terminators like marching up the middle of a Warlord.
That's pretty cool.
This is gonna be so awesome. And there it is. Tabletop times toddler. Hey, so the Reaver is coming along pretty well. I have to say, I've actually enjoyed building the Reaver a lot more than the Warlord. The way the legs are really solid and go together, I don't know what it is. I've just had a good time building the Reaver. It's a great kit, and I've always loved the Reaver. Reaver and Warhound are my two favorite Titans for sure. But I will say in the negative category that the feet pistons, the toe pistons, are an absolute nightmare to put together. You have to like glue the bottom of these into two toe joints, clip these to length, put glue on the end of them, feed them up into these feet, into these little slots, and kind of position all of that with super glue everywhere. And look, it's doable. It's a Titan. It's a big build. Yeah, obviously we get it done, but it's probably a lot more fiddly than anything on the Warlord. But I mean, it looks cool, so. So we've come to Jen's computer with the purpose of mocking out the top down of the board.
This is like one of my favorite things to do when it comes to any type of 40k creation is being able to mock it up on the computer.
So this should give you all an idea of what the board's going to look like as a playable space as we develop the concept.
Well, let's get into it.
Alrighty, so I'm grabbing a photo of the board here and just putting it into Photoshop to overlay some photos on top. First thing was the terrain, which needed to be a Marsy and orange color. To add a bit more detail, I just feathered and blended away to add some of the craters and elevation the boys had added in the board.
So working in conjunction with the good people at ARC, I got an idea of their missions that would be happening at the tournament and decided that rather than leaving space for modular terrain, this board will be built as is. It is a showcase board for the top table, of course, and the best way to make it look good is to integrate all the terrain features. As Jen has placed the laser blaster, you can see that this is a nice symmetrical overlay. We have a big crater going down the middle that could be used as cover, but also isn't unfairly advantaging either side, and we'll have an equal line of sight blocker at either end in the form of a big mound of burnt earth opposed by the laser blaster itself. Originally, what was going to be the centerpiece, we've actually moved to one of the corners of the board. This will be the Deus Tempestus. The full legs and a bit of the exploded torso will be here, and we're going to really try to make sure that in between the legs you can drive a vehicle or move large bases. We don't want these standing Titans to actually completely obstruct the field of play, so it would be really cool to make sure I pose these legs far enough apart that you can drive a Land Raider through it.
On the opposite side of the board would be the body of the Warlord Titan, buried into the ground, and would create a sort of symmetrical piece on the other side. We found this photo online by Battlebush Studios.
This will be another Legio Tempestus Titan, and this is going to be the Cord Reaver that will be freestanding. And once again, we're going to try and space those legs wide enough apart that at least like a 50 mil base or a Dreadnought base can easily move between the legs.
And on the opposite side is another Reaver just slumped up against this cliffside.
Once again, you can see how we're using diagonally opposed matching elements to the board to ensure that no matter which deployment map you get, your play experience on either side of the board should be relatively symmetrical. But by using dramatically different deaths and dramatically different poses for these Titans, we're going to create a board that feels really dynamic. And the last major Titan on the board, the fully collapsed Chaos Reaver Titan across the center of the battlefield, is going to make for a really nice line of sight blocking piece of terrain in the middle of the table that can still be traversed by infantry. But of all the Titans on the board, this one is probably going to be the one that is the most reposed and moved when we're actually building it, because we don't want to obstruct a massive amount of play space. We do want to make sure the board feels really even and really fun to play against. So the exact positioning of all the limbs splayed out for this Titan is going to be really important as we develop the board. And with all this this laid out, you should have a really good idea of what this gaming board is going to be. But you know what? I think it's time to grab the saws out and cut that Warlord Titan in half.
Let's do it.
This is a freaking $2,500 Warlord Titan. I don't want to do this. Thank you to all of our amazing patrons. You really help us out. We've got a lot of massive videos, big weeks, and plenty of late nights working on these projects to get them ready for ARC 40K. And it's thanks to your support that we're able to do that. I've made a special channel on the Discord where I've been sharing work in progress pictures of our builds as they're going along. If you've got any ideas or want the real behind the scenes for this whole Titan project, consider joining our Patreon. Links are down in the description.
So it wouldn't be a Forge World build without starting with a little bit of scrub-a-dub-dub.
I heard you say that people put their resin parts in the dishwasher?
Yeah, we've had some comments saying it would be quicker to put this in the dishwasher, but I don't know how food safe that is. I don't really want resin or resin release agents mixing with my bowls.
But if we do want to kill everyone in the studio, well, it's a good method unto how.
Whoa. No. It won't kill them, just slowly poison them over time. Now being Forge World, this gun did have 6 bendy barrels that needed to be warped back into shape.
Oh, Forge World, you and your bendy barrels.
To do that, I placed the support rings in the middle and actually bent the barrels around them using some hot water. I was very careful to avoid getting it on the actual supports. These are quite thin bits of resin, and if they warp, it's going to be really obvious. But this being a modern Forge World kit, thankfully they've started to hollow out their pieces so it won't weigh as much, and it went together pretty smoothly aside from the bent barrels. And once it was put together, it was ready to prime. Or should I say, time to Optimus Prime. So I'm establishing some tones on the Gatling blaster. I'm bringing in some really dark metallics just to try and break up the really bright silver. Now I don't need to go into too much detail here because the first stage of this weathering process is going to be some streaking grime. I'll pull back a lot of it, but this should really blend the whole thing together and make it feel like it's aged as a whole. But this will just be the first of many layers of weathering that are going to be needed to make this feel 10,000 years old and as part of a board. Once it becomes part of the terrain, there's going to be a whole nother round of weathering as well. I'm really going to have to weather this journey. It is time to streaking grime. That's right, I'm going to lay my foundational colors with streaking grime. It's going to be great. And then we can work on some more weathering from there. We have medium rust and crusted dark rust. Let's do it. Or should I say, let's do it. I don't know. What else would I have said?
It's grinding time.
We've done this a million times, you know what we're doing. It's a base coat of black followed by a spray of silver, and that's how we get our foundational colors. With the colors sprayed down, I got a nice dark metal from scale 75, and I just picked out a bunch of detail areas on the gun to give even more variance. I don't have to do much here beyond base coating because a huge amount of my depth and highlights are going to come in the later steps of the paint. We have to remember that we are making an entire gaming board in just 2 weeks, and a lot of this stuff is going to be buried in sand and under a whole bunch of weathering pigments, so there's no point wasting a whole bunch of time painting things that nobody will ever see. So I had an action plan with the streaking grime. I put it in the airbrush and I got a dark rust effect, concentrating on all the deepest recess areas of this model, and also adding a few sprays to the flat panels for a little bit of variance. I didn't want to get complete coverage with this as I was coming in with a second color to fill out the gaps.
Spraying down that silver with a matte varnish definitely helps bring the rust colors to life.
It's also super important to varnish the model prior to putting on streaking grime, because when we use white spirits to pull back the enamel paints, if you don't have a varnish on it, they will also pull back the previous layers of paints as well. With the first color laid down, I got a medium rust. This has got a lot more yellow tone in it, and I use that to cover the entirety of the gun. I do also overspray the areas that I'd previously done in the darker rust, but I make sure to airbrush on with a different level of consistency across the whole model just to create some variance.
These colors look absolutely gorgeous. I'm in love with this paint job already.
With a quick break of some well-deserved cheapy Maracuchan, we could continue. This is the wild and wacky world of what we do while we paint minis. Alright, grime is on and it's time to get the white spirits out. Using white spirits, I drag down in vertical lines to cause the streaking grime to run and create these lovely rust lines and rain marks across the model. Not that there's any rain on Mars, but it does make for a nice texture and weathering effect. A lot of the times when working on this project, it became really apparent that it was more important to paint what people would expect to see than what might necessarily be scientific scientifically accurate on Mars.
Gotta say, I'm definitely turning around to using this method. I've seen it used before on other models, but on machines or big guns like this, it looks really, really good.
I think every hobby tool has its place, and the careful use of things like enamel washes and streaking grimes, especially on large mechanical constructs, is a really nice way to accent the paint job. After all of this had had some time to dry, I got some of that Vale Joe chipping medium and I applied it all over this area of the gun that I would be painting in a charcoal grey. So I have to leave this to dry for half an hour and then come back over the top and paint on some grey.
Let's see what happens.
I thought I should bring in our resident streaking grime connoisseur.
Did someone say streaky? Did my ears prickle somewhat? Just slide right in.
Ooh, this is a grimed gun.
Ooh.
The Martian sands.
Yes. Oh, so we're going for a really rusty grime.
It's been there for 10,000 years.
On Mars.
On Mars.
All this red, that's all grime. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's magic. So no dry brushing, no you
nothing.
didn't add the red colour except for grime.
Just 2 different grimes. Here is another palette, a different grime.
But you spoil me, Dave.
Or having a grimy fix.
Yeah, I grime this.
That is going to be exquisitely grimed, sir. That is the most desert-bound, buried grime.
Is it? So I could go pretty aggressive with the grimes
very
here.
aggressive.
Yeah. I love how I act like a grime connoisseur and it's all refined. No, I'm just brutal. Like I'm an addict and I pummel shit with grime.
With that chipping medium applied, I decided to carefully come in and paint with the airbrush. I thought the airbrush would lightly and delicately lay down some layers of paint that would be easy to remove afterward. This is a Legio Mortis engine, which means a black and red paint job. Classic colors and a really good combination for a bunch of filthy traders.
Or if, again, you're doing Armaded Lady and they're also red and black, whatever.
Or if you're doing like Blood Angels or
an AFL football team.
What else is black and red? Red Corsairs.
Black Templars.
Black Templars. Yeah. I brushed on a nice little gradient to the center of these 2 colors as well, just to highlight it up. This is a really simple and basic paint scheme with an airbrush on a vehicle of this size, but there's no point in putting much more effort into it given the steps that are about to follow.
That's some fancy freehand I see there, Dave.
I wanted to give a little touch of what Titans would have. Titans are covered in adornments and are super lovely, but this one's a bit ancient. I don't want to go crazy in depth doing some kind of freehand mural or something here because this particular part of a Titan is going to be mostly buried in sand, but I did want to allude to some of that. So I just grabbed an ivory colored paint and I painted on some faux text, starting with the word Sanctus, and then I followed on with the usual half or scribble writing at this scale. And then quickly threw down a very rough choppy sketch of a skull. Legio Mortis are also known, I believe, as the Death's Heads, or is that someone else?
We're going to Google it and find out.
Literally Googling it right now.
We can't give you misinformation here.
Yeah, Legio Mortis, Death's Heads. So I wanted to have a skull.
You say he's all skull and no bones?
Jen, that was a reach even for you. Now you might be thinking, oof, that skull looks really rough. Well, it's about to look a whole lot rougher. I could have taken this and obviously made it way better, but the plans to bury this in pigments and chip it up just mean that just be a waste of effort. I also made sure to add a little Titanicus T on the side there on the right before I grabbed a sharp tool and began to experiment with chipping off this paint. You do have to be careful that you don't scrape too deeply because you can, even with the varnish, drag up the paint layers underneath.
I've never used this medium before, but this is a really cool effect.
One thing I really like about it is that it leaves these little textured areas where the paint is peeling off the model. And if you do this with painting techniques, you can't end up with those little textured ridges and lumps.
It also seems like a lot less effort too than literally trying to paint in these chips, but probably more effective.
I especially start to think this method comes into its own when you can get these large sections and sort of start to peel them off, exposing a large amount of that rusty metal underneath. And you can now see why I went to the effort of doing the streaking grime techniques. There's this gorgeous, varied, textured metal effect underneath everything I'm revealing. So it doesn't look like a single monotone color. It looks like a real piece of metal.
Satisfying.
Now Legio Mortis trim their stuff with bling. That's right, some gold paint was needed all around these trim sections.
Bam, and the dirt is gold.
It does look a lot brighter, but gold doesn't actually weather in nearly the same way that regular metals do. So I figured that this wouldn't be weathered to nearly the same extent. I painted it all out and then used Peridot Alchemy, a scale 75 paint, as a slightly green tinge to highlight it all. And then I came in with Seraphim Sepia Wash, gave it all a deep dousing in that color. With that done, we can lean back and have a look at what this gun is starting to look like. I'm really happy with how this is turning out so far.
Yeah, this looks really, really good.
There's a really neat attachment on our hot wire cutter that is a piece of wire you can effectively bend into whatever shape you like. Really good for carving trenches out of boards.
I've actually used this before too, and I find it oddly satisfying to use.
Now, I was really careful to carve in as straight a line as possible, and I did create a few little wobbles just to give a bit of variance in the shape of the rock, almost as if different types of rocks had been more or less resistant to the laser's blast. Now, lasers don't just fire when they hit the ground. Well, don't worry, the Warlord is still to come.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, we've been using these concrete pigments, these color oxide pigments for a long time. Just mixing that with the Sculpted and some water is really easy, instant color to provide some base tones to your board. We mix together some deep red with some brown to create a nice Martian base tone. We'll be able to airbrush in some areas to deepen the color and the orange effects in some areas, but also use sand effects to lighten other parts of the board. One of the most delicate parts of this process, or at least the most nerve-wracking, was creating a nice little mud pie nest that would be the home of the laser blaster. I just put it in there. I didn't pack it in at all so that I could squanch in this gun, and it was kind of satisfying.
So we need to make a few things such as the bridges, and we grabbed some Games Workshop terrain kits, and they just have nothing in the way of floor tiles that aren't broken and ruined. So thankfully, we previously 3D printed a space board that we were going to make a video out of, and we still may one day. We basically want to make like a boarding actions board, but 3D. So we have heaps of tiles, and I actually think these are going to be super appropriate for these Mechanicus themed sort of floor tiles. So we're going to repurpose some of those to build our bridges, and it should work really well.
Yeah, good team.
Team. Sand mix is done. It's time to mix up a liberal amount of PVA and water, basically traipse it all over the board for the first coat, start to bring some texture into this. This board is going to be heavy, but lucky it's going to be heavy duty for living in a game store. We're going to do this before it clogs. These squirt bottles with PVA and water in them do not last long, but it's really important that we seal in both this pigment and also seal the sand on properly before we go on to dry brushing. And if we use a brush, we're just going to move all of that dirt that we've kind of carefully put where it is meant to be. Oh God, it's already started. Scientists invent a PVA glue spray bottle that works every time, and you'll make crafters very happy.
The board is all dry. It looks pretty okay, but we need a bit more work to do.
It looks very mediocre right now, but that's part of the process of building these terrain boards. All we've done is put in the foundational textures. There's a lot of work to go. And I will say, it's not all going to be done in this video. So the plan is to complete the focal points, then towards the end of the board, bring it all together by doing the finishing touches on all of the terrain itself. The focal point of this video is getting the gun done. So in service of that, we have a few things we want to add. Some shrapnel and rocks around where the gun had initially fired, and also we're going to incorporate the bridge that Murray has made and a few other little bits and bobs before we can start using weathery pigments to bring it all together.
So let's get to work because we've got a lot to do.
This project is ridiculous.
I thought the blast where the barrels were wasn't really accentuated enough, so I grabbed a bunch of rock as if these were heavy bits of rubble that were displaced when this gun fired, and I basically threw that out like shrapnel on either side of the gun. We also continued this trend by adding smaller amounts of rock along the length of the trench, almost as if there was a surge of earth throwing some of the heavier rocks to the sides of the trench before it was all cauterized and melted into a heap of slag.
I know you had given Murray the task of painting up the bridge that would go on this board.
Yeah, these are a nice little accent, something the Mechanicum have added since the destruction to aid in crossing this particular part of Mars. We've got a little bridge and what I imagine is kind of a Mechanicus signpost, just data bursting you information through the noosphere as you drive by it.
I love that.
This kind of thing adds a whole bunch of flavor to the board without getting in the way of gameplay, and I want to add little accents like this across the entirety of the game. At this stage, we realized that more sculptor mold would be needed, which meant more drying time. But what we did use the sculptor mold for was basically to blend in all of these rocks, and also I wanted to add a bit of variance and randomness to the top edges of that trench. It was looking a little bit uniform for my liking, so I just bulked out in a few areas those lips of the trench where rock had melted in the past.
Any excuse to play with sculptor mold is a good one.
Getting Murray's little creation to fit did require some aggressive negotiation.
I call it aggressive negotiation.
Once that was done, it was easy to glue it in and just squanch it in with some sculptor mold. It ain't moving anywhere once this dries. I like that this bridge is wide enough for a rhino to go past or any of those lovely Primaris hover tanks. Once this was done, we took the board outside to dry and off camera, really sneakily added on some more of that sand we glued on the day before, just to cover up the sculptor mold areas we'd recently added on. This was left to dry and then another layer of PVA to really cure it in. Then I could come back and finish the board around the areas that were the focal points for this video. To do this on the board, I airbrushed in a few washes to grab a little bit more variance into the ground and areas, especially around the gun, before I then came in with a dry brush and dry brushed all the terrain. Mars was once terraformed in the world of 40k, and I like to imagine that despite it being a radioactive hellscape, there are still a few dead and dry examples of life or hardy radioactive growth that can grow on this planet. So I did add a couple of dried tufts and weird alien plants, but I kept it really minimal. Once those were glued on, the final touch was to give that really sandy, dry look to the board. One of the great things about weathering pigments is they dry looking, well, dry. They look very dusty. So I used the charcoal weathering pigment liberally inside the trench to create a burnt look all around where it had blasted the earth. Then I used several pigments matching the color of Martian earth, dragged them up onto the sides of the gun to really give the look of a sand-swept, dry and ancient ruin.
And with that, I'd say this board is looking pretty done.
Hello everyone. We are on our way to House of War.
Making the road trip.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, Jen is running our game store while we go and visit another one.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be kind of a bit surreal, but a lot of fun going and seeing the board again, I think. Seeing it after it's been in active use for years. Actually,
literally.
Yeah, literally years. It's sort of weird to think about.
It's still one of the things I think that people remember the most about the channel. I mean, when we go to conventions, which I'll talk about in a second, but when we go to conventions, it's still like the Titan board, people bring it up. Which it's interesting, like even reviewing the video for making this, seeing like the trepidation, we weren't really sure what to expect. And it was just a crazy journey building it. So it'll be fun seeing a board that has been loved over the years.
Yeah, making that sort of thing in the world of Warhammer, that's what the job's all about. Creating something that excites people. I think it'll be mostly interesting to see the board because we actually saw it so little once we finished it.
Yes.
So like we finished filming that at like 2 a.m. sort of thing, got it packed up that morning and took it to ARC, the event, you know, we built it for, set it up and sort of like dusted our hands off and then sort of didn't see it again after that.
Yeah.
So this will be like a homecoming sort of thing, as it were. Didn't really have that moment of, you know, oh, we've built something here that people are going to like, until I was literally helping carry it out of the car and into the venue, walking past the line of players queuing up for the tournament to sign in, and just all these people sort of turning around with their boxes of Warhammer armies, seeing us walk in with boards with Titans collapsed on them, and then just going, holy shit, what is that? You know, what is happening? And then people like, oh, I've seen some of the videos for this, it's done. And like, that was cool. With that constantly sort of like going through literally my ear on the side as we sort of walk past and get it through the door. Yeah, hell yeah. We did a thing, we're holding a thing, this is cool.
We had so much fun back then, and I think that's part of the reason we're doing this as well right now is somewhere along the way it definitely becomes harder to like have that pure joy, that aspirational joy that we had earlier on in the piece. And I think we had a meeting earlier this week where we discussed just having fun again. Yeah. And I really want to be back in that space where we're just excited to make the cool thing because it's cool. And and we're all just having fun rather than worrying so much about like getting the video out by the deadline and making sure it succeeds.
Now, the Deus Tempestus died from a colossal reactor meltdown, a huge detonation that basically vaporized most of it. Now, that would create a lot of heat, and the armature wire I've used for some of the gubbins in the core of the Titan is made of aluminium. Aluminium has a very low melting temperature. I'm going to use some fire and try and get some cool effects by melting armature wire. Now, don't try this at home or whatever, and use protection.
I don't know if breathing in aluminium is bad.
Can't be good, right?
I can't tell if that's making fire or not.
It's hot. Oh my god.
No, it ain't doing what I thought it would do. It's lighting the resin on fire.
It's like melting all the glue too. Down like right at the bottom.
That's UV resin.
Oh.
It ain't melting, eh? So plan A, kill it with fire, didn't work at all. Clearly not able to get hot enough to melt aluminium. So that means plan B. Now plan B is to use UV resin and drip it over the edges to make it look like the metal has gone molten and then just sagged and dried. I think it'll work pretty well, but it's going to be a bit more time consuming than the joy of fire.
Why doesn't the fire never work?
Fire never work. We want firework. Fireworks. It's time to work on the legendary Deus Tempestus. If you're not familiar with this titan, I'm going to give you a bit of a lowdown later in the video, but for now, just know that what we're making is a Warlord Titan's legs that have basically detonated at the waist. In our previous video where we cut a Warlord Titan in half, there was a little bit of concern that we were kind of destroying a Titan. Well, don't worry, every part of the animal is going to get used, and this is the first of them. Now, to make a Warlord Titan look like it had exploded at its core, we needed to do a little bit of what is called greebling, known by industry veterans as basically the process of detailing out flat areas, especially on miniatures, to make them look like they are realistic or they could have functional purpose. For the Deus Tempestus, which we had hacked apart and blown up at the torso, meant adding a whole bunch of rubble, including structural spurs, springs, bars, all kinds of things that look like they held this thing together at some stage. Now, most of this I made from thick armature wire, the core of the design being these two large spring-like structures towards the back of the Titan. The function of things in greebling is often irrelevant. What matters is that it looks like it's part of a functional and fictional machine more so than actually giving it an engineering purpose. I mean, we all know that these colossal mechs wouldn't actually be able to hold up their own weight because physics is a bastard like that.
So we discussed a couple of different options when it came to adding some melting effects to the Titan, and we've gone around with the idea of millipart and super glue, but I suggested using UV resin. This would be the quickest and more efficient way to add those little drips that we wanted.
This Titan has exploded from the waist up, a sort of a core detonation to prevent any kind of salvage being undertaken on it. This is almost heresy on its own, but was a worthy sacrifice. Now, this kind of detonation would cause a superheating of the metal, so the UV resin was used to drip down and make it look like the metal had heated to such a point that it had started to sag, melt, and droop after the explosion. They used UV resin to deliberately create these drips, curing the resin as it was coming out, and as it was dripping, you can see it slowing down and forming these beautiful liquid drops. And when this is all painted silver, it's going to look great. Now, the waist at this stage, even with those struts, lacks a sense of drama, and thankfully, we deliberately left on some of the torso armor mounting points. So I grabbed these panels and got some pliers and very roughly hacked these up and damaged them. I wanted these to look like they've stayed part of the Titan, but definitely got torn apart to some degree when the explosion happened.
Not gonna lie, my heart broke a little bit seeing you absolutely hack these pieces apart, but I know you're gonna make them look awesome.
And the great thing is, the larger chunks that were cut off with the clippers, we can use to pepper the board and decorate it, as if these shards of this Titan flew out at high velocity and impacted the terrain around it.
Oh gosh.
And with more drippies around any damaged area, it's starting to come together. And with this back circular door, I'm also vibing like Star Wars The Phantom Menace when they shut the doors open with their lightsaber.
Oh, totally. This is great.
Now, to fill out the top of this Titan, before putting in some weathering pigments or maybe sand, I just chucked in a bunch of wire meshes and some plastic art, a whole bunch of things that could look like internal panels, cabling, or superstructure that's all just mangled in a mess down here. Once that was done, I mixed up some rocks and sawdust to just make a chunky rubble mix and then glued that inside.
At this part of the process, it can seem a little jarring, a little bit weird, but I know whenever Dave makes something, it always turns out cool once it's sprayed black.
Does it come in black?
Now, to paint all of these armor panels, we follow the same process I did for the laser gun in one of the first videos. They all get undercoated black and then on top of that sprayed with a silver paint. This is effectively the foundational color for every single part of these Titans.
Easy. I know how you like it. Oh yeah. Gonna see it dance. Damn. I know what I'm doing. Damn.
Spray him like one of the French boys, girls. So tight.
All right, I'm going home. Bye, Dave. See you later. Bye.
Time to make the crater for the Deus Tempestus. I have no idea how deep to make it, but I know I need it to be like kind of shallow. I don't feel that shallow. It's too deep. We're gonna fix a lot of it with sculptor mold. That's gotta be the center.
A Warlord Titan blowing up is no small feat, so we did want to have the Deus Tempestus sort of sunk into the board a little bit and with a crater surrounding.
Boss me the Deus Tempestus! I need to cut it in at a deeper angle. I'm just very concerned about play space. It can't be steep because then models just slide.
I got the hot wire cutter and pulled the wire out at an angle, creating this gentle slope in a circular pattern.
It's just been sat there for 10,000 years. We're under-exaggerating it. I think in reality it would probably be up to like halfway up his ankles, but...
That done, much like the gun before, we sprayed in our streaking grimes, focusing on a dark rust in patchy areas and then a full coverage in a medium rust, just to make sure it all looks nice and orange like the sands of Mars.
I don't know what it is about this effect, but I absolutely love it. The sort of modeledness to it, it really does look like rust.
Now you'll notice here that we are not only painting the superstructure in this way, but also all the armor panels. And that's because we're going to use chipping medium on the panels and paint over them. I like the idea of revealing this rusty metal underneath all of the paint that is worn away. And even though it is super mega Titan Legion Mechanicus standard paint that sort of resists weathering for 10,000 years, it's still not completely unblemished and has started to take some damage. Honestly, I super adore how this is coming together. I think it looks awesome, and for a weathered piece of the battlefield, I'm really happy with it. But one thing I have noticed is Legio Tempestus have these really nice silver trims on all the armor panels, like this panel here. So given how good the weathered silver looks, I don't want to have to repaint that and then re-rust it. So I'm going to try and airbrush in the panels and be really careful to get a good effect. If I can't pull it off, I'll just have to paint the trim separately, but I'm going to try to avoid having to do multiple steps and repaint things, and we'll see how it goes. Time to color in, painting very carefully between the lines. It'll be a journey. Now all this streaking grime was applied after a varnish, which allows us to pull it back with white spirits. And on these armor panels in particular, I always do a vertical downward stroke focusing towards the middle of the panel. This creates these gorgeous streak lines down the armor that I think look fantastic and really make them look like they're natural weathered metal.
Yeah, this is 100% a technique I would use again.
With all of this rust effect applied, I could bring in that Vallejo chipping medium, cover all the panels liberally, and allow that to dry. Now this paint will allow the next coat of paint to be basically peeled off with some water and a sharp little scratchy stick, which is really cool for some of these effects. We tried them out on the gun, but this is the first real test where we can start to do some crazy things with these armor panels and then take away and really add a sense of age to this model.
Let's see if it works then.
Now for these armor panels, I chose to use the airbrush. I avoided the edges as much as I could and effectively coated in an imperial blue with a lighter blue on top, as well as a bone white with a white highlight for the bone sections. These two colors are the colors of the Legio Tempestus and will look really good when they're scratched away, I hope. And by using the airbrush, we get a really nice consistent coat across the whole area. It also doesn't overly wet it with brush strokes, which can affect the chipping medium underneath. We have limitations, and also the amount of weathering we're doing on these means we don't need to paint each of these panels as if it was the showcase panel on someone's centerpiece Titan. However, I cannot simply have a Warlord Titan and go the lazy route. So I got some masking tape and decided to mask on some panels, cutting out small squares so I could do some checkerboard patterns, as well as thin centimeter high strips of masking so I could create some strips across the model as well.
Those peelies are so satisfying. I'm not a huge scratch building person, but when it came to making the shrine, I decided I wanted to grab a couple of kits and see what we could make up. We also had the Kill Team Chalneth box that had some really cool pieces in it, and a Rogue Trader box too.
So what are you actually building here?
So I'm building a shrine that's going to go at the base of the Titan.
A shrine?
Yeah.
Why?
We had this idea that perhaps people would like to come and visit the beautiful Titan that has been destroyed and worship it in all their weird and twisted ways.
Now, a spoiler alert for the end of the book Mechanicum here. A warning that some future spoilers will follow for the outcomes of some of the Titans in that book. So if you're super concerned, maybe skip ahead a little bit or put your fingers in your ears and go la la la. This book's been out for quite some time and is set in 30k, so it's ancient history for the worlds of 40k. The outcome for all these Titans and this battlefield, in fact, is it is all flooded in lava and buried. So even the board itself is actually a little bit of suspension of disbelief. It's a little bit of fan fiction here. According to the narrative, all of these Titans and all their wreckages were buried in liquid magma, but in our universe, perhaps they have been excavated by keen Mechanicum archaeologists looking into the history of the Schism of Mars.
At the end of the day, we're trying to build a really cool board with lots of story, and I think this really helps. As a site of worship, we wanted to add some candles. Well, not just some, a lot. We wanted to add a butt ton of candles to this shrine. Murray actually had the suggestion of cutting up tubes of plastic card and using them as candles, and this is absolutely brilliant. I wish Murray had come up with this idea for my sisters, but it works fantastic here nevertheless.
It's a fairly time-consuming process cutting a whole bunch of little tubes up, but I do think the result is pretty satisfying. I noticed you also made some thicker candles out of milliput, which I think is a great idea to give a bit of differentiation to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Not all candles come in the same shape and size. And then to make them all more cohesive, I did the same thing that Dave did and added some UV resin to look like the melted candle wax and to just kind of bring it all together.
It's amazing how UV resin in small droplets with a UV light can be such a versatile hobby tool.
So it came time to start adding a little bit of detail to the armor panels. And I'd done this a couple of times before with some scripture work for my sisters, so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. For some inspiration, I looked up the transfer sheet that these guys would use and copied a couple of the designs. Once I was happy with how the panels were looking, I also added in little blocks of text just to sort of surround the panels and make them look fuller.
So you're working on some really nice scripture work here, Jen.
I got a little bit scared. As you can probably see in the camera, a spider decided to visit me, a whitetail, in fact, so I stopped painting at this point.
Well, it wouldn't be Australia if there wasn't a random spider attack while you're trying to paint a miniature. Now, there was a panel I really wanted to tackle, and that was the knee that says the name of the Titan and has some cool lightning bolts. I also added some kill marks on it in white, as if the Moderati at some point had marked out the super heavy tanks and Xeno Titans that this bad boy has taken down in the past. I also added in red paint a little bit of a graffiti kill marking. Some overly loyal and misguided person at some point in history has come along and marked the deaths of 3 traitor Titans on the Deus Tempestus knee as well. With all those panels done, it was time to pull back some paint using some water and a sharp pick, and this is a super satisfying section. So we're going to show you lots of juicy footage while I do as promised and tell you a little bit about the Deus Tempestus, one of my favorite Titans in all of Warhammer 30k.
So one of the really exciting things that we're doing in this board is we're getting to bring parts of the lore of 40k and Horus Heresy to the tables and hopefully to people's ears for the first time. If you haven't read the book or listened to the audiobook Mechanicum, I strongly recommend it. It is a fantastic read and covers a side of the Horus Heresy that isn't covered very heavily in other books. Featured prominently in this is the Legio Tempestus and the Legio Mortis, 2 bitter enemies with rival territory on the surface of Mars. The Deus Tempestus, the Titan that we're working on in this video, is a very interesting Titan indeed. It was potentially one of the first Warlord Titans ever constructed. It is on the record as being the oldest Titan in the Legio Tempestus, and the Legio Tempestus themselves on the record as being one of the oldest Titan legions, which means this very well could be one of the first Titans. The Deus Tempestus was a warlord armed with what we believe was a macro Gatling blaster and a volcano cannon, as well as Apocalypse missile launchers. And it sat dormant for 200 years. Not even moving a single servo or hydraulic, and yet, testament to its construction, it could still be reactivated when needed. This kind of lore really allows for the idea of a Titan corpse to withstand the erosion of Mars's surface for 10,000 years, because these things really are built to last. Now, spoilers to follow for the next minute while I work on this Titan. The Deus Tempestus was, until the Princeps Signoris, the leader of the entire Legio Tempestus, was interred in an amniotic tank, being directly interred into the Deus Tempestus in a customized cockpit. Princeps Cavallerio's amniotic tank is installed into the cockpit of the Deus Tempestus, and he pilots it with a direct neurological feed link. He's basically one with the Titan, kind of like an Ava pilot. Now, the Deus Tempestus manages some amazing feats of combat in their last stand against Legio Mortis, and as the rest of his Legio is wiped out, the Deus Tempestus and Princeps Cavallerio is one of the last Titans still standing. He manages to fell 2 Warlord Titans and a Reaver before going down, but unfortunately for Princeps Cavallerio, victory could not be had, as his Titan is crippled by the Aquila Ignis, an Imperator-class Titan Legio Mortis is fielding. With boarding charges being placed on the legs of his Titan, the Magos on board and Cavallerio make the ultimate sacrifice and sacrilege, deciding to detonate the reactor aboard the Titan rather than have it captured by Legio Mortis. with the dust of this explosion settling and the only surviving Titan being the Imperator-class Aquila Ignis, Coriel Zeth's magma city is detonated and the whole battlefield is flooded with lava. In our board, we're taking on almost an alternate history version of that, or maybe one where the Mechanicum in the 41st millennium has finally excavated away some of that rock. The reality of the battlefield and its place in the 41st millennium is obviously sketchy, as most fan creations for Warhammer are, but I really wanted to make a big homage to one of my favorite books and one of my favorite Titan battles of all time.
With all these steps coming together and panels drying, it was time to lower the Deus Tempestus into the board. We'd cut out his little space for his feetsies, and now we could squish him in. So we used Sculptamold, as we often do, hacking underneath his feet and then squashing the Tempestus down. Using a thin layer of Sculptamold, we then built up all of the edges. This not only adds a bit of texture and base color to the board, but it protects and seals the foam, allowing us to use aerosols, as well as all kinds of other glue products and things later in the build. To accentuate the fact that this is a crater, we also used a broken rim of the crater, a little lip where you could see the edge of it raised up, almost like some cover, but this really did help to sell the effect of it being the remains of an explosion. We did break this down and leave it open in areas to make sure there was plenty of space for large tracked vehicles to move around though. Another final consideration that's worth noting. Now, we've already seen some comments in chat about sort of getting realistic vibes with how the laser trench went down, which apparently isn't a laser, but you know, I'm not going to deal with that right now. And we wanted to just sort of get across that something really important with building a gaming board is you do have to make concessions to reality. For example, I believe the explosion surrounding the Deus Tempestus and the size of the crater would actually be massive. It would be so much more colossal than this and so much more damaging than this. But the nature of it being a gaming board means that the slope can't be so steep that models will slide or slip down it. It really needs to just be a gentle slope that is a very usable gaming surface. So we're always making these little concessions while we're building this table so that it can be both narrative and exciting to look at, but also a really fun playable board that you're not trying to balance models everywhere on just to use. The very first thing I did before proceeding was I got the airbrush out and just sprayed in some dark charcoals and blacks. I didn't use too much, as I could always use some weathering pigments later, but I just wanted to deepen and darken some rings around the Titan to accentuate that crater even more.
On top of this, we added different textures and colors of sand just to build up the board a little bit more.
Now, of course, in reality, it's been 10,000 years, so sand would have probably completely covered and filled this crater by now, especially with this depth. But we're not worrying about that. We're trying to tell a story.
It's the rule of cool, right?
The rule of cool. Once this was done, the final thing to do was to place in the shrine that had been built, allowing its focal point to be the knee of the Deus Tempestus that says Deus Tempestus. It makes sense that this is the site of worship. With this placed, this part of the board was done for now, and
it is time for the Cord Reaver Titan to be completed and that part of the board to be finished off as well.
And this Titan is that it has been detonated, destroyed in Mortal Kombat 1,000 years ago. I'm going to lead you through my plan on how to create this little diorama. We're going to blow the back out of this guy. He's just going to go like a burst lemon, because that's how lemons burst. We want this to basically peel back and rupture. However, this is the piece with our little friend. Say hello to my little friend! I want to see if I can sort of save him for a rainy day. I'm just going to cut him off. Luckily, we know how to use this.
Never let it be said that we fully destroyed a bunch of Titans. We're saving the best bits.
Murray, what's going on?
All right, we're going to do something just a little bit crazy. We're going to burn our way through the carapace of our Titan. Now, this is extremely dangerous. Do not do this at home. Resin fumes equals very bad. We're taking all the precautions. We've got all the safety gear here. We're taking no chances. Watch us do something wild and you relax at home. We're going to start with this.
Now try squishing it. See how pliable it is.
Uh-huh.
What do you think, Murray? I'm going to say that's a no.
Nah.
Fire is not the answer.
Curses.
Damn, fire is usually the answer.
But it was kind of cool.
so fire wasn't going to work, and I had the Deus Tempestus legs to work on with Jen. So Mari, I'm going to leave working out how to destroy this Titan. Up to you.
So use all the spinny bits.
I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
And I'm just going to have at it and try to make as many interesting parts as possible, and also just hack at it just a little bit. I want it to look specifically destroyed in a way. In one of my tests, I decided to see how much I could cut away using this large Dremel piece. And I also discovered that this just makes magical battle damage just to scuff up the perfect lines of all the armor. I'm just going to go absolutely ham with this and just wreck so much of this lovely armor piece.
I will say this is probably one of the most anxiety-inducing things I've seen in the studio, because you've effectively got a rotary Dremel tool that is shooting up so much particulate fibrous resin into the air. That's a real breathing hazard.
Yep, I have basically secluded myself in this part of the building. I've got fans sitting next to me to clean myself later. I've got all the respiratory correct things on, and just a little bit of movie magic. I'm only doing some of these cuts for the camera. The rest I'm actually doing inside a bin. So there's a little behind the scenes there.
I did think that was especially worth mentioning, though, to the viewers at home. If you do plan on doing the same sort of thing to any resin model, you really need to be careful because you don't want to breathe this stuff in.
Here we have my lovely battle damaged piece, and now it's time to see if I can bend it off to the hot water. Alright, so one very readily available way of bending resin, and basically to get it to fit usually with these kits, is to douse it in hot water and let it soak for a while. And so that's what I'm going to try here, and it kind of worked until it didn't. It just sort of snapped clean across the top, and at this point I have to make a decision. Do I use this or do I try and fix it? And I decided that no, I'm going to use it. I'm going to keep this split across here, and then I'm actually going to further break the small pieces towards the end, angle them up so the large carapers here is cracked, and then all the small pieces towards the aft of the mech have just blown up. Now when things like this happen, I always try to make the most of it. I could have just gone and fixed it, but I want to make this part of the narrative that it broke this way. And we're sort of going to do the same thing with the wall. You watch the saw it in half and just bits fell off it everywhere as we did so. And we're just going to use that as part of the narrative on how the entire thing has basically fallen apart.
In the previous videos, we talked about this Cord Titan, and we really wanted to make it look like it had been blown up by one of the high caliber weapons Titans will. Maybe a volcano cannon shot straight to the core.
Yeah, so we want to make this huge tunnel basically excavated via large ordnance through the center of this entire Titan. So that's going to mean cutting through a few large bulkheads of resin. So I'm going to drill a whole lot of pilot holes and then switch to bigger drill bits. And I think that's going to be the best way we can get through this. Bro, this is what you usually do with wood when you're going to drill enough holes that you can get the jigsaw bit into it. Basically, I'm going to follow the outline that I've drawn on with a Sharpie where I want the hole, and then basically fill in as many of the leftover gaps as possible with drill until it's small enough that I can cut through it and take this mangled piece of the center out.
Oh, the heavy hardware is coming out, Murray.
Yes, I now have to match the hole in the actual head, which attaches onto the neck, to make the hole line up. So I'm just going to hack apart a big V shape from the head using the reciprocating saw. It's a little bit difficult to hold here, but I'm just going to take it slow. The idea here is that I want the blast to have gone straight through the head, down to the body, but with the chin, I'm going to try and later peel this down a bit by heating it, so it's sort of superheated and just slowed down a little bit as the entire vehicle has died. There's going to be 3 crew in here usually, but 2 of them have just been absolutely annihilated. The last one was instantly killed, but was just far enough from the blast that he has miraculously been preserved. Yep, we did the thing.
We shorted the power.
Stay Ben.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
Oh, hello. What hidden warpage did I unlock? Look at that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe. The bent thing, yeah. So we need to do that for that side too, and it will...
Yep.
Now, after all this work, it's just like what Forge World is like when you receive it from the manufacturer. So for those who don't know, Titans of this class have a crew of 3 plus a Mechanicus Tech Adept, which we're not really going to go into. But in the cockpit, there is a Princeps and 2 Moderati. Now, in this particular cockpit, the Princeps and Moderati were vaporized, all save one, who seems to have been shielded in the corner. And we thought it would be amazing to turn this into a sort of a revered corpse, a mummified body that has been turned into a small shrine by the Tech Adepts that can manage to reach up into this Titan 10,000 years later. Sort of the last physical embodiment of one of the crew members who stayed loyal into the very end.
Yes, this one corpse has basically become the entire embodiment of all the heroes who fought in this battle.
Now, I did want this to work, and I was very glad I discovered that bodies don't decompose on Mars. They actually just dry out and mummify because there's no bacteria there.
Yeah.
Kind of wild to think of that they would just sit there forever.
Yeah, no oxygen, no bacteria, so yeah, there's no decomposition. It's all just drying up.
So the corpse is canon. It's fine.
Alright, so I've knocked a hole through the neck and the head of this thing. Now it's time to put it all together. We peeled apart the back where all the explosion has just gutted the rest of him. As I said with the neck hole, I wanted to make it look like the superheated metal has been knocked out and then fallen back down and oozed back into place before cooling, leaving these big snail trail drips of molten metal. I'm going to use Milliput to try and recreate this and just make this cave-like hole, this sort of nice circular effect as everything is pulled into the corners of this now destroyed vehicle.
You'll see in the Deus Tempestus build, I actually use UV resin for my solution to the melted metal problem.
Basically a whole lot of innovation and trialing different things at once, which is kind of cool. It's nice to sort of turn around to see what other solutions people have come up with. This is now the finished hull. All that's left is all the detailing, and I'm going to start with the head. Now it's time to make our little Moderati, and it wouldn't do to just glue in the one who is alive and piloting the thing. No, I'm going to cut him apart. Basically just going to use his top half, cut off his head. So I have this nice gorget piece, and I'm going to Milliput the rest of him, as he just needs to look a bit deflated because there is unfortunately not much of him left. It's all just skin-wrapped bone. So I'm going to see about sculpting that in. And now with that done, it's time to work on the shrine that's been laid around him. It's a whole lot of purity seal scriptures and also a little imperial eagle just hung above him to commemorate the incident and the amazing worth of the Imperium.
Murray, it's your turn to build a 6-barreled Titan weapon.
It sure is. I think that most of these are more or less straight. I gave them a little roll, like you would rolling out some Play-Doh sausage. But they all seem to be pretty straight, so I'm just going to carefully hold them together, and I'm actually dry fitting the bottoms and gluing the tops, so I can be super certain they're good.
Well, I've been since informed that the Gatling Blaster is in fact a laser weapon, and I feel lied to because my whole life I just thought that was the gun from Dawn of War Winter Assault that was a big laser gun.
No, you just said you were informed it was a laser gun, which is in fact a 150mm bombardment cannon.
Oh, is it? How do they keep that much ammo in the gun? Wouldn't it run out of ammo in like 8 seconds maximum?
The same way they get those shells into the Lehman Ross cannon inside that turret.
What are you doing?
Docking.
I'm just tweaking grime. I'm basically going to copy everything Dave's done, so I have a good guide to go off. I'm going to do spots of this dark one, and then we're going to move to the brighter one, and then we can continue on from there.
It's grime time. So you've seen these steps before. We've seen them all before?
Yeah.
It's the same as we did for the other Titan. It's basically 2 coats of streaking grime, but here is a problem. And to solve this problem, we're going to have to talk to the person who cleaned this up.
So it came time for me to pull back some of this streaking grime, and I got told this got left overnight.
Oh, not overnight. It was over the weekend.
Oh, great. Even more time for it to dry on. So it was really hard to try and pull this back, but with a little bit of effort, I did try my best, and some of it did come off.
You can see here that it is much more strongly adhered to than it was on the Deus Tempestus, and a good, I guess, lesson. If you're after this extremely weather-beaten and rusted look, you can keep your grime on for a longer period of time, but if you want to pull most of it off, take that off a lot quicker. It is time for you to learn the ways of chipping medium.
Yep, I'm going to put it all over this nice big piece, as I think that basically all the nice molded parts would be painted over, so they're going to get a nice chipping.
And then in with the Imperial Blue with the airbrush and highlighting that up as well.
Yeah, I'm going over very closely and roughly, moving the brush around so I get a very irregular pattern. All the paint would have come off at various degrees and over time.
Different rates, you might say.
Yes, that's the word I'm struggling for. Alright, so I'm going to use masking tape to get some nice clean lines and some interesting focal points on the different armor panels. And here is a nice peely. Ooh! Yeah.
I like that your solution to the armor panels was to actually just spray really carefully in between them rather than to worry about masking off the trim.
Yes. I have finally finished spraying and priming all of the colors on my Reaver. Now I can actually do all the freehand and details and even the cockpit diorama. So I think it's time to get into that. It's time for the really nice juicy part of these Titans, which is doing all the nice little freehand across the armor panels. I'm gonna have some nice little focal points, and then I'm going to move into just some regular scribble that you might see on your purity seals, really.
The Emperor decrees death.
He sure does. He does a lot of that. So, I kind of finished everything, but
I stuffed one thing up. If you notice the lovely freehand I did on the left knee pad, some of the more astute might notice that I put it upside down. Yes, the text is now upside down, and I don't want it to look horrible on the Titan, so I'm actually going to have this as some rubble that's on the ground. The Reaver still looks cool without the knee pad. Actually, it kind of looks like it's a bit more worn down, like it's got a knee joint showing. That's what I'm going with. That's a little bit of a mistake. It looked right up that way. Oops. But these things happen, and I'm gonna roll with it. Okay, now it's time for the little diorama that I've spent so much time working over, and I'm going to paint him in this sort of a faded, tattered blue overalls. I'm gonna go in, leaving some of the streak and grime showing in the recesses, paint him up fairly cleanly, and then I'm gonna weather him down here, as he has sort of charred along the rest of the insides of the Reaver.
I love that he's there. I don't know how he somehow survived a shot hot enough to melt through a Titan.
Yeah, it's pretty miraculous that he has survived that much, considering all the metal around him is also melted, but it makes a nice dramatic scene.
Maybe the other Moderati was just like looming over him having a chat, and he just got vaporized and like took the blast of heat.
It's the same logic as all the Space Marine helmets being like blown off to reveal the face underneath, which would have been instantly pulverized beforehand.
Hey, it looks cool, and that's what matters.
Yeah, look at that little guy. I wanted some text to go here, but honestly, I couldn't think of anything suitably dramatic in the moment, so I just went for some half words. You can see strength, mankind, and valor. Ooh, here we are, finishing up. Dramatic parts.
I mean, the Titan board was our pitch. House of War wanted to sponsor us to make a board, make the top table board for Arc, and they wanted us to make, like, they basically said, pitch something you want to make. And we said, this is silly, this is going to be way outside the budget, but wouldn't it be cool to play a battle on a field of destroyed Titans? And Riordan at House of War just said, yes, it would. Buy them. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's... I guess that's the advantage of being able to like pitch the dream at the end of the line, and someone being like, yeah, no, that sounds like what we should do. Do it. And that's how something like this comes about. Dave and I are very much of the mindset of Warhammer is themed conflicts within like gorgeously thematic atmosphere where everything is crafted.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a landscape that tells the story that you're playing on. Like, it's part of the game. The board is part of the game, and I really love telling stories through gameplay and those memorable moments. And that's what we hoped the Titan board would give people. I really wanted people to tell stories. Hey, remember that time that you deployed your sniper into the shattered legs of the Deus Tempestus? Just that cool concept of these memorable scenes that are being created, rather than, you know, remember that time that we deployed our squad in Template Ruin C? Oh, that was great. And then I shot you in Template Ruin B? Oh, what a memorable moment. Like, the narrative, the visual narrative, I think serves to help tell those memorable stories as much as the models.
Yeah, it's all about making those moments. And like, one of the structures that we created on the board was so we built that sort of like palm up to the heavens, sculpted in a way that you could like place a character or something on top of the palm of the thing. And when we put that at Arc, we saw people doing that. Like the games that we played on, people were doing that. We're like, yes, we've made a moment for someone, for that player, but also possibly in their games that people will remember.
But communication's important. I think in that video, we didn't really make it. I remember getting reports after the fact that some people had struggled to have their games on the board because of terrain imbalances. And I think we didn't really make it clear that there's a lot of empty space on the board. And those empty spaces are for you to deploy the balanced extra terrain. Like, it was never intended that you would only play on the board as it was. There were empty spaces so that if you had a mission that required terrain deployment and stuff, you could put on extra buildings. Yeah, I think that kind of didn't get through. So I definitely remember some people saying, oh, you know, it's a bit open, there's not enough cover. Yeah, which is fair enough if you didn't put extra terrain on there, but hey, I can't wait to see how many pieces have been broken off it by people playing on it.
I'm sure so many, like, should be right. We'll find out.
Let's go find out.
Okay, so this Titan is going to be the most buried. This is the sheared top half of a Legio Mortis Warlord Titan, and I'm going to bury it. So that means foam carving pretty much a big hole. I almost want it to come up to the roof of the Titan. I'm going to grab the foam cutter, and there's hair in my face. It's wild. We're outside, and the weather is not great, and let's just do it. It is absolute workstations, I guess. We're well underway, and I am working on the big Legio Mortis Titan right now, just getting all the panels done. And most of this is going to be buried underground, so I'm not taking too much time on them, but there is so much to do. We're starting to get stressed. Arc is this Saturday. We have to do 2 more Titans from scratch, and they haven't even arrived yet. Yeah, so they were out of stock when we first ordered them, and then we reordered them, and postage is not being our friend right now. So we're 2 Reavers down, 4 days to go. So this one is going to be crazy to the wire. Let's hope we can get it done, but at least the journey of this felled Warlord Titan from Legio Mortis can come to life. Enough talking to camera and more painting time. Jen's hard at work.
Yay!
Now, Legio Mortis in the canon are painted in a nice red and black paint scheme. As I like to avoid painting with black, I went for the heavy charcoal paint from Vallejo. Now, a really great thing about chipping medium is that it makes everything super forgivable. I decided to name this warlord the Sanguinus Rex, which basically means the Blood Lord, and incredibly quickly sketched out a sort of realistic heart as well as some blood drops. I was pretty rough with these as I knew I'd be chipping them back. And then for the other panel, I decided to start to show the influence of the binaric scrap code, the chaosy influence that was starting to seep heavily into the Dark Mechanicus at this time. These arcane sigils and strange scratchy runes would have been daubed over this Titan as a sign of allegiance to the currently unknown Dark Gods. With all of these little painting elements done, it was time to weather them up using the chipping medium and a sharp pointy stick. This allowed me to scratch off any areas of my previous quick freehand that I wasn't happy with, and in some areas I took away most of it, leaving only an impression. I'm also conscious on this part of the model that it's going to be heavily buried and covered in weathering pigments, so there's no point in spending a huge amount of time at this step making things look perfect because they're going to be destroyed and then covered in sands later. One area I was quite happy with though was the random panel of just scratched chaos runes. It's funny how individually they're not that impressive, but when you get an entire wall of this strange runic text, it does look pretty cool.
Gives me kind of like Dead Space vibes or like Matrix. It's really nice.
Just focusing on one thick metallic coat on all of those trim elements. Now, in its colossal clash, the Deus Tempestus actually fells 2 Warlord Titans. One of them is detonated quite handily, and the other one is sheared in half. So this one, in my mind, is the Titan that the Deus Tempestus managed to shear in half, basically separating the upper torso from the lower torso and collapsing and having it deeply buried in the sand. Now, if we're going with the theme of the Mechanicus excavating these Titans, this corrupt and evil Legio Mortis Titan has been left to languish, unvenerated and undug up due to its traitorous nature. So I've positioned some pieces. Come have a look and let me get your vibe. This suddenly looks a lot cooler than it did when I was little pieces. So I'm thinking this will be fairly intact. We're going to sculpt on it also. You can move models over it fairly comfortably, but kind of bring the level up so that the bits can shine.
Yeah.
But I realized I've got all these arm pieces, so I was thinking that that's where the Gatling blaster is, so I can sort of bury this arm like half in and have this broken off and put some cables between them, and then we've got then people go, oh, that's where the gun came from, this guy.
Yeah, it isn't just random isolated blaster in the middle of nowhere.
Is this the vibe?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, cool.
I think that's cool.
Buried Warlord, let's do it. It's glue time. It really came down to play space as being the biggest consideration. I knew that once we got sand onto this, we needed to be able to deploy models here. And while it's cool to have some terrain and some line of sight blocking and really important for games, it's also important that a corner of the board that will often be part of a deployment zone has plenty of space for models to be placed. So to achieve this, what I did is actually place out the armor panels that had been painted as if they'd sort of broken off their mountings when the Warlord had collapsed into the ground. This allowed me to spread them out and make them a lot more flat than they usually present represented on the model. And I even broke one of the central panels on the right-hand side of the Warlord to help further accentuate this.
In order to make the Warlord Titan's body more stable, we went ahead and just packed in the empty spaces with some foam.
The sculptor mold needs to dry to set, so if we tried to fill this whole thing with sculpted or sculptor mold, it would A, take forever to set if it ever did, and would also be very heavy. So packing this thing out with foam once we placed the Titan was definitely the right idea. One other thing that was added is we also had the arm pieces of the Warlord Titan, and I deliberately threw these down onto the ground close to where the laser trench was. By adding these elements jutting out of the ground, you can really see the story of how that weapon, which is most definitely not a laser, ended up smashed into the ground near to this Warlord. The broken arm pieces connect the two sections of the board, and it's cool. I don't know how to finish that sentence.
We are ready to cover this board in sculptor mold. We've patched the hole up with a bit of foam just to make sure it's all got something to stick to. So it's time to get out my favorite material.
I'm pretty sure sculptor mold is a brand name though, and we don't even use sculptor mold. We actually use sculpt it.
Oh, there you go. Well, I will now call it Sculpt It from now on. But either way, putting a Sculpt It on was a lot of fun. As David mentioned before, something we wanted to include was sort of these slopes that led up to the armor panels, ensuring that people's models wouldn't fall all over the place.
We tackled this approach in two passes. First of all, tacking in the Warlord and also filling out those gaps underneath where the armor panels would be. And then the second pass was to place the armor panels and use the Sculpt It to actually fix them onto the table and also create those gentle slopes that Jen had talked about.
When it comes to putting the sculptor on these boards, something else that's really important is filling any of the gaps along the edges of the board. We needed to make sure everything matched up nice and neatly when the boards are put together.
Now the left side of the model I kept at a gentle slope. This is something where you can definitely put infantry models here, but anything else it starts to get a bit more sketchy. For the right hand side is where we really flattened out these panels and we're going to bury them more significantly. And this area you should be right to deploy pretty much anything.
When it was time for our boards to dry, we ended up throwing them outside to get the best of the Australian sun. However, I think our sun is a little too strong and ended up taking a lot of the color pigment out of the boards. They ended up this really weird skin color pink sort of mess. It was really interesting that it did this, but the boards were dry nevertheless. We decided to put some pigmented sand and some texture paints on top to bring back that color it had taken out.
So to bring back some of that color, we use a PVA mix and also some sands.
I don't like sand.
Two different sands mixed with differing concentrations of red and brown pigments. By shaking these onto the board in random patterns, we create a really nice blend and bring a lot of that Martian red richness back to the table. And after this PVA is dried, we also give another coat of PVA on the top just to seal it in. Now the finishing touches on these boards are pretty simple. I come in with a Fugan Orange and an airbrush, putting the wash in any areas of the Sculpt It that are still visible and don't look Martian orangey enough. I also do the same thing with Agrax Earthshade to bring a bit of darkness and depth to some of the recessed or shadowed areas of the board. Once this is done, we use Vallejo's Dwarf Flesh to dry brush everything, covering all of the sand evenly. The way this blends between the two different colored sand mixes and also the still present and visible Sculpt It really makes the board feel cohesive and brings it together.
Looking back on this project, I wish we hadn't buried it in so much sand, but doing the dry brush on top did bring it back a lot, which was good.
Now with the weathering pigments on this board, I am more worried about what looks cool than what's historically accurate. We've already determined this is a fantasy game and we got to go with rule of cool. And one of the ways I did this was actually adding a bunch of charcoal black to the exhaust of the Warlord. Now of course, this would have been covered up centuries ago. It's ridiculous to even consider it would be there, but it's kind of what the eyes expect. So when you place it on the board, there's dark pigments in the engine and this soot-like belching of black carbon out the back of the Warlord, it just looks right. With the carbon done, we just add 3 different oxide pigments from Vallejo's range in the red and orange spectrum.
It's crazy to think how much these pigments actually do to this board. Before this was a weird skin colored looking thing, and now it actually looks like a piece of Mars.
Final step is airbrushing on a pigment setter to make sure all of those pigments seal on, and then at the very end we throw on a nice matte varnish just to protect everything. So on the original order that was made for this board, 2 of the Reaver Titans didn't arrive, so we rapidly went to reorder them and the Loyalist Reavers were out of stock, which meant that we needed to order Chaos Reavers as they were in stock. Due to this desperate last minute reorder, these things were running mega late, and it turned out the Postal Service hated us even more, with the delivery taking far longer than the usual estimated time by Forge World, which left us with no option but for me to dust off my 5-year-old pile of shame, my Chaos Warhound Titan. So my beloved Warhound Titan is going to live on forever on House of War's board. To be honest, I think it's a pretty cool silhouette, and we let no obstacle stop us. Arc is this Saturday. It's almost here, so we just have to plow ahead. So I'm gonna get straight down to it.
Nothing will stop us. Except the post.
So one of the key advantages to my Warhound Titan is it was already trimmed, cut, and washed, ready to paint, and it had just been languishing on my shelf for several years.
Emphasis on several.
Several. Yeah, this is pretty bad. But hey, my pile of shame is near infinite. Now, the Deus Tempestus Titans we actually sprayed with a silver Vallejo paint, whereas we have lead Belcher, which is a bit darker, which I kind of like as an undertone for the evil Titans of Legio Mortis. However, as with the other Titans, we did just give this a quick spray undercoat of black and then lead Belcher and then a varnish over the top, so we were ready to start weathering. Now, why am I spraying all of these pieces individually? That's about to make a whole lot of sense. So now the method to my madness can come to the fore. I've primed all of these in black and then silver, and we ran out of black, so I used Dunkelgrey, and we ran out of Dunkelgrey right when I was finishing this off. And then I've done a varnish. And the idea is I've basically got all these pieces so I can assemble something really dynamic in this trench. The Warhound, more than all the other Titans, has very, very posable joints. So I'm going to be able to do some really cool things with the legs and feet. And what I was thinking is I'll come back and carve into this board. We always knew we were going to carve into this board. We just put some sand on it for reveals. In this space here that's quite open and empty, I'm going to actually cut an angled recess in so I can bury the front of the Warhound at a sort of a vertical angle. So his hips and pelvis can come in here, and I can have his legs buckled and shattered in the trench with the feet splayed out behind. The head, of course, can then splay out at an angle sort of like that, something a bit dynamic, and the weapons can come down as well. And I think it's actually going to be probably one of the more interesting and dynamic Titans on the board. So in a weird way, I actually feel like this has been a bit of a happy little accident.
Make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
Because I think having the other class of Titan, that is the Warhound, on the board is actually going to make for a more dynamic battlefield. And also the Warhound is just going to be more posable and more interesting sunk into this trench. So I'm going to grab the hot wire cutter and start carving out the shape of this. With those few basic steps done, it was time for me to put a permanent home for the Warhound Titan. And to do that, I wanted it to be fallen forward and collapsed into this trench. As if the trench had been created first. As the Warhound was destroyed, it also happened to collapse and fill the hole,
creating a very convenient bridge for infantry to use in battles on this field.
It is better for the board. The pose, the dynamic nature of the Warhound is a so much more interesting a feature. A Reaver would have just been this big chunk of resin laying down like a planking board. I don't know. I am very into this. This is sweet. Jen has headed off for the day and I am here alone. It's late Wednesday and Arc is on Saturday. I am about to glue in the Warhound. I'm loving its pose. I think it's going to be awesome. And because we've sculptor molded it, I'm going to be able to use some hot glue just to set it in place, but then I'm going to use sculptor mold to actually like mold it in. But before I do that, I'm also going to get a little vacuum and suck up all the crap that's basically like powdered sculptor mold from when I cut into it and all the little loose rocks and stuff. Then we're going to glue it in place, streak and grime it, and really just belt through and try and take this one home. With that in place, I actually decided to assemble the Titan in place. This would allow me to follow the contours of the board, and it would allow me to get away with some pretty dodgy assembly in areas that wouldn't typically be able to be built that way. There's some joints that don't connect properly for drama, such as the broken apart left hip, which doesn't even connect to the Titan. If I limited myself to just what the kit could build, I don't think this would have been nearly as dynamic. So I'm really glad I chose to build it into the terrain.
Hey, is that some Chaos Stars I see on his toe beans?
Yes, it is. As a longtime Chaos player, the only Titan we had on hand was a Chaos Warhound Titan. Now, thankfully, in the book Mechanicum, they do mention that the Legio Mortis Titans, when they emerge for war against Legio Tempestus, are bedecked in horrifying runes and sigils that are seen to be blasphemous to the machine god. So while this 40k-esque Chaos Titan might be taking it a little bit too far, we can still assume that the Legio Mortis had already gone far enough by the time of the Schism of Mars. So with the Warhound Titan all glued in, I could come in with the trusty streaking grime. Although this, of course, isn't streaking grime, it's crusted rust deposits medium and crusted rust deposits.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm wearing a mask.
Hard.
Something like that, yeah. I call it red and orange.
And with all the streaky grime put on, I used some white spirits to pull it back in all of the raised areas. It was interesting doing this on the board. It allowed me to avoid a whole bunch of time wasted on the front and back, but also, and most importantly, allowed me to really understand what those raised surfaces would be in relation to the board as a finished piece, rather than just evenly bringing back all the streaking grime across the whole model. Instead, I could bring it back related to its final resting position.
Kind of weird it is to paint when you treat it like terrain rather than a model.
That is some good insight. It is a very different process, hey? With the model resting and glued in, I could then apply the chipping medium and also some of that nice airbrush paints using the same colors as the previous Legio Mortis Titan. That is gory red with a highlight of brighter red that I have no idea what it is because I can't remember, and then charcoal gray for the black sections.
Brighter red, probably blood red.
Blood red? Sanguina Escada or something like that on the bottle.
Just blood red.
Okay. Knowing this Titan would be so heavily buried, and given the large amount of chaos decor on the exposed surfaces, I didn't bother with any freehand on this one. I just went straight to removing the chipping medium with a sharp pick, before I moved in with a dry brush and stippled on Viking gold onto all of the trim areas to bring back the Mortis golden luster.
Nice bit of battered bronze and gold.
Another step I was really happy with on top of the Titan was actually the vents on the top engine block, and we had a bunch of little gardening and craft wires, and I basically cut out some rough segments of them, bending them, twisting them, and damaging them up before gluing them on the top. They took to the streaking grime well, and glued in there and bent outwards, they really look like the reactor has maybe overheated and exploded at a previous time.
Yeah, it's a great touch. I didn't even notice that you did that. It looks fantastic.
Another final step was to use some washers on the edges of all of those trim panels and also run some little rain marks or streaking marks down the sides of the armor.
Jen, it's in, my special little friend. It feels weird saying bye to my warhound.
Yeah, but he fits perfectly in this trench and on this board, so I'm actually really glad that he is here and permanently to stay.
The time has come to actually fuse it to the board, build up some sculpt mold and some rock around his feet, around his waist to really make him feel part of the board. And then we've got to sand it up, put some weathering pigments on, and this will be the home stretch. And I really do think, seeing it like this, the balance of this slice of the gaming board is so much better now. The warhound really adds something, and I think that I'm pretty excited to see it finished.
Yeah, me too. Let's get to it.
Now that it had come time to properly secure the warhound, we used a, what do you call this stuff, Murray? This goo?
Sculpt it.
No, the goo in the tube.
Liquid nails.
Liquid nails. We used some liquid nails to secure this down, which I think is like a silicon-based glue that bonds to pretty much everything without degrading it. It's great.
It's just a tradies glue, really, for house construction, more or less. So it's pretty good overkill for a Titan.
So we stuck that in all of its joints before we applied a whole bunch of sculptor mold. And here I decided to break out a few sections of the trench as well to just make it look like it had collapsed and exploded a little bit more catastrophically, and also to break up the really clean silhouette of the trench. If after all it had been created by multiple rounds of a macro Gatling blaster rather than a laser, there'd probably be a few more scuffs on the side.
I also just want to point out that I think you painted this Titan in a day, right?
Don't reveal my secrets. Yes, this is a one-day paint job.
That's very impressive.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, because remember we received it and it was like Wednesday when it was ready to go. Yes. The event was on the Saturday.
Like, clap hands, well, time to do something.
Time to smash out an entire Titan. Anyway, we also smashed out burying it with sculpt mold, this time making sure to create these little trenches in front of it, as if the earth had been reshaped a little bit by the sheer weight of this machine collapsing onto it.
Nice impact marks.
After that was done and the sculpt mold had dried, it was time to spritz everything and apply our usual mix of sands. So there's a red and a more brown tinge sand, and I used these quite a lot, but I also powdered them up and piled them up towards any area of the warhound I thought sand would have accumulated. I also took this opportunity to fill a whole bunch of the bottom of the center of the trench with sand, as well as thousands of years of sand. You know, that's sort of how it would go. Absolute home stretch now. It is time to paint and blend in all of this sand and then put some weathering pigments on to make the warhound feel at home in this board. It's finally starting to feel complete. I'm a lot happier with this laser trench board now the big centerpiece is in it, and yeah, this is coming together really nicely. Let's do it. With the weathering pigments, I concentrated the black weathering pigments towards exhausts or anything engineering related that may have exploded and charred the ground permanently when this beast collapsed. And then I used darker weathering pigments around the areas where shadow might build up or be more obvious, such as the edges and lower portions of any trenches and built up earthworks. Then in other areas, I went with the softer orange colors and spread them all over, before also powdering up and down the sides of the Warhound, making it look like it had been sand dusted for a long time. With this done, I sprayed on the pigment binder across the whole model, and we were pretty close to finished.
Moment of truth where we gently flip the board and hope all the expensive stuff doesn't break. Oh, there it is. Look at that sand. Well, the expensive stuff broke.
No, it's fine. I'll glue that.
Okay, now we go the other way.
Oh, something did fall off. Yeah, I know.
There's still a lot of loose sand, so maybe we go if you bring it up. We're kind of shaking this every way. That looks pretty good. I just need to paint it up, airbrush it, dry brush it,
Glue layer.
do some weathering pigments, and we'll be good. The final glue layer. Oh yes, I'll need to do another layer of PVA just to feel all that in. All right, I'll do that now.
Check that out, man.
Oh my gosh. I just realized by remembering, this was never glued in. Not once. That didn't fall out, like it didn't break. It would just push fit.
Looks like you've got full John Wick on it.
No idea how much this is like dream for a lot of people, I think, that'll play on this board. Probably have never seen a Titan in their life. They're going to be playing on a board with 4 of them. Pretty cool.
Meanwhile,
We're going to be building up this wall into Mechanicus terrain.
That's right, the remnants of Coriel Zeth's magma city, captured and excavated from the wall of this bit of hillside here, will be the backdrop to the Cord Reaver.
5-star ensuite can see right through the hole in the Reaver.
Let's get started.
Let's just do it. We're halfway through this project. This is crazy. Videos. You get videos.
All right, to kick things off, we got this battlefield set from Games Workshop that we thought would work perfectly on this wall. There's a couple of pieces to assemble, but it wasn't too difficult, and everyone knows how much I love building terrain.
Yeah, the hard part was that we wanted some walls that were mostly intact, which is kind of hard with Warhammer terrain since it's all literally rubble.
Yeah, they make it really hard to actually build whole buildings, but it kind of suited our purpose. Titans were going to take up most of the board. We just needed something to decorate the edge, and Coriel Zeth's magma city was destroyed like 10,000 years ago, so these remnants make sense to not be repaired.
So this is actually a new kit by Games Workshop, and I had built the previous one for the hobby store in town. They made a few different changes to this kit, but overall it was pretty easy to assemble, and a lot of it just sort of made sense.
It looks like there's a lot more variation in the panels. The old Cities of Death was basically just sort of the same panel again and again and again.
Yeah, 100%. This is definitely more interchangeable and had honestly better pieces. Like there was just a bit of variance and a bit of difference, which is good.
Cool.
After I was done clipping everything out and getting rid of all those nasty sprue tags, it was time to start gluing it together and decide what color I wanted to paint it. Now our board is primarily this orangey red color, so I wanted to paint it something that would stand out. And on the box, it was painted this beautiful cream color, so I decided to go with that.
It's a good idea considering that a lot of Mechanicus stuff is red itself, which would really blend in. So yeah, I think that was the correct decision.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now, having painted one of the Titans before, I originally wanted to see if the chipping effect would work on the terrain. So I based everything in a matte black, then a spray of silver, then a spray of varnish, and then using chipping medium on top, and finishing it off with a cream spray. So I was tossing up between 2 different methods on how to paint this terrain. The first method I wanted to try was using my own sponges and detailing effects to create a weathered look. Starting off with this sepia wash that I found from Vallejo, which I actually got told wasn't really favored by some of the crew here, but I decided to give it a try, and I actually didn't mind it too much. It was a little bubbly compared to contrast paints, but I thought it came out pretty well.
For clarity there, we didn't favor it for airbrushing. It seems like the Vallejo washes have some kind of like lumpiness to them, maybe some sediment in the bottom of them, and they just led to rapidly clogging the airbrushes in a way that Citadel washes and contrast have never done for me.
The second method I tried was using the chipping medium that we had done on the Titans. And after doing this for about a couple of minutes, I decided that this was going to take forever. It really wasn't worth the trouble of trying to chip away all this paint when I knew I could do this effectively by using sponges. So in the end, I went over the top of this, but I'm glad I gave it a shot just to see if it was possible, and yeah, it is, but I think there's better methods than this one.
Yeah, worth an experiment. There's a lot of small details on that. You could probably get a lot more out of a dry brush or a sponge.
I totally agree. Once I had my Trezor method down pat, I knew I was going to go for the sepia tone wash and not bother with the chipping medium. It was time to spray down all of the other pieces of terrain and give them a good wash and let them dry, ready for a dry brush. Using the same cream color that I had sprayed down these pieces originally, I went over the top with a very quick dry brush just to bring out some of those details. Luckily enough, this terrain had a ton of detail in it, so this wasn't too hard to do. So I knew this terrain would have to go through a couple of rounds of detailing and effects to make it look really cool. So the first round I did was a stippling of some silver to look like the chipping effect I wanted to achieve originally.
Yeah, it looks like you're managing this a lot faster and probably with a bit more control.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually really like using the sponges to add these effects on. I think it just puts it in the right place and where it needs to be. While waiting for the silver to dry, I decided to add a couple of feature panels to these terrains. This included the doors that were on these walls, and I wanted to paint them in a bright red color. I used a contrast paint to do this, and it helped settle in the recesses and look nice and colorful. Once that was dry, it was time to add on more of the weathering effects, and I'd used this rain effect before on some of the cyberpunk terrain that we have here at the studio. So I slopped this all on top onto where I think rain would fall if it was in the mountain.
I haven't used this before. It actually looks pretty good. Also, the slight green tint will contrast really nicely with the red board.
Once the rain effects were done and dried, I went over the top with a streaking grime. I found that although I liked the green of the rain marks, I wanted to add a little bit of muddiness onto this terrain piece. And the streaking grime did this very effectively. So for the last bits of weathering, I added on some rust effects, dry blood, and just a final touch of that silver just to really make it stand out.
Dried blood?
Yeah, just a little bit. Not
What
much.
was that for?
I like to think that maybe there was once upon a time a victim that died here and, well, the blood just kind of stayed.
Notice. I just thought it was a cool, like, oil grime effect.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice, yeah. Worked well.
So it is time to carve up this part of the board, and this is a part that you need to make sure you're wearing protection for, but is very satisfying. So come and watch me as I carve this baby up. That's your mask. I get the cyberpunk mask. You get the scary mask.
So when Murray had glued together the core of the board, he'd really glued together the template, giving us enough space to do whatever we wanted with it. But when we were thinking of deployment zones, as I previously mentioned, it was important that we minimize the space. So we immediately got to carving back a lot of that foam wall until it was taking up as little of the play space as possible. Often we were using the edge of the foam carving tool bent to create some natural variation to help it look like a cliff edge.
This process was pretty slow, but we definitely wanted to make sure we didn't take off too much foam and have to add more later, rather than just taking our time with it.
Now, the idea is, of course, that all of these ruins are being effectively excavated from ancient buried lava flows. So we wanted to make sure they all felt inset, as if archaeologists of the Mechanicum had begun to dig them out again, looking for maybe the history or secrets of the creation of the noosphere. Now, there was definitely consideration in our placement up the top that there was a small area for people to place some units, but there was also a lot of area that could become a bit precarious for models. So we'd have to come up with a way to deal with that a bit later.
We also had to consider the fact that there would be a Titan standing in front of this terrain as well, so if we wanted to place any pieces on the ground, we needed to make sure that they weren't in the Titan's way.
As a passionate fan of the Warhammer universe, the origins of the Mechanicum, and in particular the Dark Mechanicum, have always been of interest to me. It's one of my favorite factions, and nowhere are their origins explored better than the Horus Heresy novel Mechanicum. This book is a fantastic exploration of the moment when discrete sedition turned into all-out civil war, and the Mechanicum was forever split into two factions, those loyal to the Imperium and the Dark Mechanicum. Now, there are spoilers to the book Mechanicum to follow, so if you're not interested in hearing any of that, skip forward a couple of minutes, fine. But otherwise, for those who've read the book or are interested in learning a little bit about it, I'll give you a brief overview of the Magma City, which we're building, and more importantly, the setting of which our whole Titan board has been taking place. So in Horus's corner, we had two very important Magosses, the fabricated general and leader of the Martian Mechanicum, and Malgator, the personal envoy to Horus himself and go-between Mechanicum and the traitor Astartes fleets. In order to win over the Mechanicum to his side, Horus promised Kal-Borhal the freedom to explore all kinds of technological research that had been forbidden to them by the Emperor. As a sign of this trust and future gifts that would come, he sent Malgator back to Kal-Borhal with access codes to the ancient, secret, and very forbidden Vault of Moravec. This vault contained chaos-corrupted technology that rapidly spread into the Dark Mechanicum systems like a virus. This technology disrupted communication at Mars. Why? While also sabotaging entire industries with its insidious scrap code. While the ancient and sealed technology in the vaults of Moravec would have brought Mars under Kalborhal's complete control, the Noosphere, a technology that allows for collective consciousness through the interaction of human minds, played a crucial role during the Schism of Mars, protecting Martian forges from chaos-corrupted scrap code. Adept Coriel Zeth, who controlled the Magma City, a forge located in an active volcano, had shared the remarkable Noosphere technology with fellow open-minded adepts and friends. However, such technology had previously been rejected by the Fabricator General and wasn't in use in the forges favored by the Dark Mechanicum. Responding to the scrap code as a calamity or natural disaster, Adept Coriel Zeth was quick to respond, instructing her allies Fabricator Locum Kane and Epluvian Maximal to cut themselves off from the networks of the Mechanicum and rely exclusively on the Noosphere for communication. The development of ancient technology and Coriel Zeth's rejection of the Omnissiah as a god was used as the tinder to light the fire of all-out war. And that open civil war began when the Dark Mechanicum attacked Coriel Zeth and her allies. The Magma City would not have been able to defend itself if it wasn't for the stalwart defense of the Knights of House Tyrannus and also the glorious Legio Tempestus, fighting off the vicious forces of Melgator and his Dark Mechanicum, as well as the traitor titans of Legio Mortis. And that is the battlefield that we have been building over these last couple of weeks. Now, Coriel Zeth died while defending the Magma City by detonating the reactors of the forge, basically overflowing the entire area, allowing the dams and safeguards that controlled the dangerous lava of the Magma City. Coriel Zeth detonated, causing it to explode and a tidal wave of magma to flow across the battlefield. This prevented the Dark Mechanicum from gaining access to the secrets of the Noosphere, as well as the Akashic Reader, a technology that she was on the cusp of perfecting that would unlock the secrets of creation and a direct access to the concept of knowledge itself. This technology may have lifted the Imperium into a new era of enlightenment forever, making it unrecognizable from the 40k we know today. However, this is 40k, so any chance of that happening was doomed to failure from the start. We've got to keep it nice and grimmed up. Now, despite the loss of such awesome loyalist Mechanicum members, we do get a silver lining in the form of the Knights of House Tyrannus blasting Melgator to pieces on the battlefield. At least there is a little bit of satisfaction seeing those Dark Magosses die. But with all of that said, and you understanding the background for the board and why we've built it to commemorate this final stand of the loyal Mechanicum on Mars, I think it's clear I've talked enough, and it's time to get back to the video.
Sculpt it!
Yay! My favorite medium to use, sculpt it.
Oh.
So as with all of these boards, this part, once everything was glued in, needed a nice round of sculpted.
I really wanted to discourage players attempting to use the ledges to place their models in any way that could potentially damage people's models, so we used the sculptor mold to form little peaks in the areas where models really shouldn't have been placed. It is the designer's intent that only a small area up the top of this section is playable terrain and the rest is impassable terrain. Now, I've run a game store for many years, so I know what tournament players are like. I know you're going to try and put your models up here, but don't. They'll fall off and break.
We also needed to carve out the place where the Reaver Titan would be sitting. So Dave did this pretty thoroughly, and once it was all carved out, it was time to put some sculptor mold inside.
It was time to actually glue in the terrain, so we used a hot glue gun to fix it into place. There were only a couple of bits that weren't stuck on, and now that the foam was sealed, we actually had something to glue it onto. We'd be coming in with a second round of sculptor mold today, one that would hide any of these glue seams and fully integrate the plastic terrain into the sculpted terrain.
Again, this is another day where we had chucked the board outside to dry and it taken some of the pigment out of the sculpted. But like Dave said, we're going to go over it again, so, well, no big deal. When looking back on this project, I am super glad we decided to add this terrain piece to the board. I feel like it gives it so much character and tells more of a story than just having the Titans on the board. We've got a few compliments over Arc over these pieces, which I was really surprised by, but again, I'm super glad that I got to do this part of the project.
A whole bunch of Titans is really cool and all, but it's great to see the world that they were actually fighting over.
The second round of sculpted, we added in a bit more texture to these caves and included more playable areas for people to put their models.
It's starting to look a bit more natural now, as if, like, you know, it was actually built into this area. Everything was then later covered, but it looks like it fits there.
It was time for Anakin Skywalker to get his collar up because it's time to get sandy.
We gave the board a thorough spray of PVA and water just to make sure that the sand would stick to the board.
We've made the journey to Ringwood to House of War, who not only house our Titan board, but also Squid Mars, the Thunderhawk gunship, the metal one. Ultimately, it was House of War who bought that. So we will go and check that out now and get off this busy highway. But I've never been, so yeah, let's enjoy House of War. Expensive table.
No, best table. Everyone loves it.
Do they really?
Oh yeah, yeah. We always have people going, oh, is anyone using the Titan table? Can we book it? I'm like, sure, go for it. Absolutely.
That is so cool.
Yeah. It's definitely the favourite table. Everyone absolutely adores it.
I'm so glad. And it looks in good nick.
Oh yeah. No,
We've lost a finger.
We have. There's a few small bits that get knocked off due to people just, getting a bit overzealous. I think the finger went to a custodes, as I remember.
Oh, as it should.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm honestly impressed that it has held up as it has, because I know what people are like. It's weird, I haven't seen it in like 2 years. It's very peculiar seeing this again, to be completely honest. So many hours of work.
I don't know. I'm just like looking at all the arm panels.
We have a thumb.
Yep.
Oh, there we are.
It's good. It's living with the broken bits get to live here.
It's in the crow's nest.
They haven't been lost. That's what matters. This is really clever. Who did this? It was me. It was me. It looks good.
One of the bits everyone loves is actually having like the hole in the Titan.
Yeah, yeah.
We get people who'll actually put figurines in there and use it as a shooting spot. Like scouts and rangers and things like that get stuck in there.
That's hilarious.
It's evil. It's evil.
Do you ever have people actually just like taking photos on it, like setting up their armies and just putting, yeah.
When we do tournaments and that, and people have to line up their armies and make it look all nice, they tend to sort of, there's a small scuffle for the Titan table who gets to set up on it to look the coolest,
Ah, wow. I forgot we made this. Like it's so bizarre. You work in the pipeline of just making content and then you forget the nuance of it. You know what looks good? This looks so good. The painting on this Titan, like the weathering on the legs and stuff, it's so cool. And the freehand, like Tempestus written on the knee. Oh, hell yeah. I mean, and the little cockpit in here. Gosh. It's Wednesday, my dudes, and Ark is in 3 days. And the postal has just arrived. First of all, thank goodness it has, because if it didn't, we'll not have enough Titans. I'm very glad that we had the Warhound as a backup, because there is no way that we are going to be able to fit more than one, and even one is a push. Chaos Reaver Titans. Oh my goodness. The boxes just fall apart apparently. This sticky stuff is not enough to contain the power of that Forge World. But here's what everyone wants. Excommunicate traitores. Well, Reaver, number 3175. I hope you enjoy your life as part of a gaming board. Now, we really have to build this. We got like 2 days.
And watch it.
That sounds like a Jen job. So we were down to the wire and everything was going fine.
Sorry, we had the whole team there to go on.
Yeah, the whole team consisting of Dave and Jen. Because, of course, Murray wasn't working that day, so it was getting tense.
Yes, that means we basically have a day to build this guy and then another day to maybe paint him and put him all together.
I don't know how we're going to do this. This is kind of daunting, and I've got to be honest, this is the first time in the project where I had those little pangs of, oh God, I just kind of want to give up. But I can't, because we have a deadline. We have 200 people expecting to see this, and we're just gonna have to push through.
Yeah, working on this project, I don't think I've ever felt sort of fear, trepidation, and enthusiasm for the crazy stuff we've done.
Okay, so I'm pretty much done washing the parts for this Chaos Reaver, and it took me probably about a good 2 hours to do so, but it's pretty much done, which is great. So we can move on to the next part of the project, working on the board where the Reaver's going to be slumped. I'm so happy not to have to wash these again. It's time to move on to finishing up the Chaos Reaver. Yay!
For that, I'll drink half of it. Did you get medium coffees? I'm so sorry that I went out on a coffee run and I brought you a coffee. Would you like your coffee small next time, Jen?
I needed this coffee. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So one of the great positives of this project has been almost a lifelong joy of building Titans. I've always seen them. I've never really built one. And over the last 2 weeks, I've managed to build not only a Warhound, but a Reaver and a Warlord as well. I feel truly lucky. But this time it was Jen's turn to do the majority of the build.
At least since I knew I wasn't going to be there, I built the toes and legs for you.
You make this look absolutely flawless, and I can say without a doubt, I hate these Forge World Titan kits. I think that they're really hard to work with, and when you're on a time limit and you don't have much to work with, it's really, really frustrating. The one thing I do want to add that I actually do think is kind of a poor design choice when it comes to these Forge World kits is you can accidentally cut off bits of the actual pieces without realizing it, and I did this plenty of times.
Well, I'm glad that you think that I made it look effortless, because those pistons suck.
So I will say I've come to learn about myself. I actually really enjoy the advanced model process of building a Forge World model. No question about the value, and there's a lot of arguments about the price and the quality you get for that price. I'm not contesting any of that. What I am saying is I found that the actual building part of these more complex kits that do require multiple parts, careful thought, time-consuming filing and preparation, the perfect alignment of bits and heat molding resin, I find it really enjoyable. All of those delicate, precise, time-consuming things that we had no time for.
Yeah, it's really a craftsman's joy, and then we just hit it with a heat gun and tear it in half.
The other thing I didn't quite understand with this particular Forge World kit was the instructions were very basic. They didn't go into much detail of how to actually build this guy, so I made a few mistakes on gluing some pieces together, and then I had to pretty much dunk the entire thing in boiling hot water and try to mush it all together, which sounds horrible in hindsight, but I really didn't have much of a choice.
There's certainly an order required to build these Reaver Titans, easily in the order in which you place the parts and heat bend them. By the time you get to your second or third Reaver Titan, as most people will, you generally pick those things up. Oh wait, no one builds these except for the 3,000 in the history of the Titan that have been purchased.
Yep, can confirm that. That's what it says on the little clarification sheet that you get posted.
But despite the building process, at the end of the day, holding this thing in my hands and actually looking at the detailed work, it's pretty epic. I'm actually kind of psyched.
Now, my final commentary on the building of the Chaos Reaver kit before we move on, and you can see there that Jen has glued on the top mount for the gun completely the wrong way, and we can't fix that. I really feel that this Chaos Reaver kit is actually just superior to the Reaver kit. I have one complaint about the fittings where you can clearly see the plasticard where they had made this conversion. They didn't bother to gap fill it, which I think is a little bit of a shame. I think overall the silhouette of the Reaver just looks better in Chaos.
Yeah, the big spikes and teeth just jutting forwards of the front of the carapace towards the head is such a cool silhouette.
That's where I commit my treachery.
Here it is. Yep, glued in and sideways. That ain't coming out. We tried, did try. I don't know how you thought that was. She'll be right. I'll just settle it on perpendicular to the mount. She'll be right, says Jen.
What are we doing, Dave?
Floor planning.
Yay.
This has been a big part of this project. It's not the best lit place in the studio, but it's where the board fits. So we've been sort of brainstorming, and we're up to the last corner of the board.
Boom.
Thanks for your input, Jen. So thankfully at this stage we have the Chord Reaver as sort of a scale. So we can see that this is where we're going to put the destroyed Chaos Reaver. And if we were to slump it into the corner of this rock, I just think it's just eating up a whole chunk of the battlefield. You can't really deploy units here. Can't really play around it. It just looks good. I think even though it's going to be slumped and fallen over into like a pillar of rock, kind of needs to come almost as forward as it possibly can on this board out here. And that way we've got all this space here that we definitely want to trim this a lot because it looks pretty, but it doesn't do anything for gameplay. Although if you want to do some you could do like a stepped bit halfway through in the middle. So like this section here could be like 2 tiers lower. So like here, that could be, make use of it, make it interesting terrain. Which means we need to build like a pillar, like a mesa for the Reaver to be crashed into.
Yep.
Good luck.
So part of this project, we talked about making some mesas that the Chaos Reaver would be slumped against. The first thing I did was get these offcuts of foam and start gluing them together with a skewer in the middle to secure them nicely.
You're basically making like a big meat kebab and then sort of cutting it down until it looks more like rock than bits of polystyrene.
Yeah, pretty much. Just don't eat it.
So Murray and Jen have been assembling this Reaver, and I find it kind of amusing that it can stand up. Beautiful, graceful, balanced stance there on one toe. Yeah, everything's a mess right now. We're in full chaos mode. What we're going to do is we're going to go and foam cut all of the board, the mesa, all the areas we were looking at basically incorporating this into, and dry fit and cut around the Reaver, understand and establish its pose, and then we can take the Reaver off, spray it, and sculpt and mold the terrain.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Very enthusiasm, much wow.
Play space is really important, but also sort of designer's intent about where models should be able to be placed. We didn't want to give a massive advantage to one deployment zone, so it was important to minimize the amount of floor space this was taking up that was advantageous, while still allowing a couple of vantage points for maybe a squad or two to hide up here. So with the, we basically made in 2 bits of elevation to make this a little bit different from the remains of the Magma City.
This was actually the last piece of the entire board that we had to foam cut, so it was really cathartic and nice to be able to finally finish this part of the project.
But the main thing here was getting the mesa to the right size, and originally we'd come up with the concept of having 2 mesas and the Reaver would be grabbing onto one with its claw. But as we got late into the Wednesday, it became very apparent we wouldn't have time for this, but also it would take up way too much space on the board. Going with a single mesa that the Reaver is collapsed into.
Sort of like an old western. He's been shot and he's slumped dramatically against the wall.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool kills in the book Mechanicum, and they're all a bit different. Perhaps he was one of the Reavers that suffered from the catastrophic void overload, which basically causes the synapses of the Princeps and Moderatis to explode in sympathy with the void shields of their Titans.
Also, I cannot understate just how cool it is to be creating all these destroyed Titans while listening to the audiobook of the battle. We had a lot of grins on our faces that day.
With test fit after test fit, I eventually came up with a pose that I was pretty happy with and settled on this. Reaver collapsed into the mesa with a couple of bits of rock tumbled on top of it.
Something that we had discussed previously was the fact that when people usually build their Titans, they build them in a really static pose. So this was the first time we get really creative with the poses, and I actually adore the way that this one is sitting. I think it's really cool and really unique.
It's 4 p.m. Thursday. Murray spent last night gluing together the Reaver, and the legs have just fallen apart. Looking at the claw, the fist, the gun, it's all unassembled. And I'm just like extremely, this is Murray. This is literally Murray texting me right now about the disaster. And I'm actually like, I do not know how we're going to get this finished. This is resin. There is no paint on this. Now unglued resin, and I have to now reassemble it before I can even paint it. And if we're gonna get anything finished tomorrow, all the wet work needs to be done today, which means it needs to be like on the board with the sculptor mold on, with the sand glued with PVA. It's 4 p.m. on Thursday, so I'm panicking a little bit, I'm gonna be honest. If only our postage had rocked up a little bit sooner than 3 days before the event.
It's almost end of day. I'm currently trying to blue tack all of these parts on so we can spray them. I've stolen every stick of blue tack that we have in the office just to try and get this all down. I'm a little bit stressed. Dave's a little bit stressed. Murray isn't here. He's stressed. We've got a lot of work to do and we don't have much time, and we just got to power through. We can do it. Hopefully it'll be really good.
You're optimistic. It's all going to shit.
No, we can do it.
We're We're completely on the floor like a gremlin, gluing together Reaver feet. And anyway, sometimes when I go to sleep, crying helps me sleep. Tonight will be one of those nights. Forgive me, Reaver, for what I am about to do. This is a chisel. This is a Reaver. Oh, Jazz is here. Right in time.
What did you do? Wait, what? No, we didn't.
Sorry, what?
That was the wrong Reaver. No, I'm
It actually didn't do anything that I wanted it to do, and it just broke in the wrong spot, so that was great. That's good. Chisels aren't exactly the most precise instrument. Like, you sort of think about breaking a piece of Forge World resin this big, it's not exactly an easy prospect. Maybe I just like the nick. Really cool. Just leave the nick. Oh, we've detailed it. I've done it all like nicely on this side, and that side's facing away from the viewer.
Of all the things in this project that come close to heresy, sacrilege, or the defiling of an expensive model, this definitely felt like the number one. Because not only was it brutal and violent and destructive, but it also lacked finesse. This was just a sheer monkey smack it thing.
But it's okay, because it was a Chaos Reaver. So all you loyalists can watch on in...
I needed that.
some satisfying coverage.
With the power of tight editing, we also managed to spray this model black and then silver, but decided to do the streaking grime steps when it was glued into the terrain.
Again, we're basically going to treat this one as terrain itself rather than its own freestanding model.
So I got given the task of building what would be essentially his hands. Well, one of them was a hand, the other was a laser gun, I believe.
Ah, the hand, a very simple thing to build. I'm sure you loved it.
Oh my goodness. This had so many parts to it, but it was very, very cool. It took me a couple of minutes to actually sort through all the pieces, and I unfortunately had clipped everything off the sprue, so I had to line everything up and kind of just eyeball match the best I could. The gun, on the other hand, was super easy to assemble and required very little.
Wait. You're saying that your gun wasn't warped?
No, it was actually kind of perfect, to be honest.
That's so rude.
With these steps done, it was up to me to begin the assembly of the final stages of this Titan, and I have to say, these are not intended to be built in these weird and wacky poses.
In hindsight, also would have been probably a good idea to put some of this sculpt down on the polystyrene before we covered it in a huge hulking Titan. We made it work. We have mastered the art of sticking sculpted around Titan legs now.
To actually secure the Titan to the terrain, I used the same techniques I used on the Warhound Titan, using a builder's liquid nails as the strong support while also putting a little bit of hot glue on there just to get some tack and keep it held in place.
Alright, Dave, what are you doing with the head?
So Jazza had walked past and said, it'd be cool if the head was sagging down. And I said, it doesn't really work like that. It mounts on a little ball joint. And he said, be cool if the head hung down, and then left. And unfortunately, he was so right. Something we do at the studio is we often kind of wander in, check in, see what each other's creating, and sometimes, especially when help is asked for, suggest some ways to make the project even cooler. Despite the time pressure, Jazz's suggestion resonated with me to such an extent that I actually decided I needed to take the time to do this. We had a whole bunch of extra cables for the Titan, for the arms, the hips. None of these would be used in this broken build. So with a whole bunch of 2-part epoxy and desperation, I clotted up that neck joint with a bunch of glue, managed to get it secured in place, and then hid that whole joint behind a bunch of these gorgeous cables, ultimately giving the look that this head has sagged out of its mount on these massive, strong, high tensile cables.
Yeah, it was quite concerning when I walked into the room and he said, Murray, don't hate me, but this was definitely worth it.
I believe Brickman would call this good parts usage.
There's a reference to Lego Masters, an Australian TV show. Hey Jen.
Hey.
It is only 8:30 on Thursday night. You know, it's fine.
That's early.
And here's the Cord Reaver, boys.
It's very cool.
And obviously it's just me and you in the studio. No one else is here. You're going to do the weathering stuff.
Yes, I am. I've done it before, so I am not too stressed, but we do need to get this done ASAP. So let's go.
Weathering time! And just so you all know, it ain't just for show. It's night time. The nighttime madness can commence. That's right, this was definitely outside of business hours, but the time had come to begin to apply some of that chipping medium. Liberally covered all of the armored panels, and in a deranged, sleep-deprived state, got to apply it before starting to airbrush on the red, as you can see at the bottom of the frame here. But, that area will just not be chipped, as I rapidly proceeded from there to remember the chipping medium and to then airbrush over the top.
I think that's the beauty of doing a sort of destroyed Titan, is we can make mistakes and they just turn into happy accidents.
With the streaking grime applied, I got out my woolly dauber and basically just did what we always do. Use white spirits to pull off a bunch of that streaking grime. I used the same colors I'd used on the other Legio Mortis Titans, which was a gory red and a sanguine red, or a blood red, I believe it's called, on top, and heavy charcoal for the gray areas of the model. With my spicy heraldic diamond pattern airbrushed in at the cost of some of my sanity, I let loose the pressure of that sanity by drawing some lovely, relaxing chaos runes. The way they dance across your eyes and the whispers of the dark gods in the back of your mind when you look at them is a real calm and comforting way to really recenter yourself when working on a project like this.
Davey, you feeling all right?
Before noting that some of the areas had an awesome cracking effect on them, I think this was because I'd sprayed on and perhaps the cracking medium or the chipping medium hadn't quite fully dried yet, but it basically left this awesome cracked look across its surface, and I just decided to keep these possibilities for some of those panels. Now, as for whether I'm all right, guys, I've never been better. I mean, just look at the way I'm taking my time to draw these runes, spiraling into a circle, down, closer and closer, tighter and tighter together towards the answers that all of us crave at the center of the universe, the center of human consciousness, experience, the Empyrean and the Eye of Terror. You will see, everyone. It's all starting to make a whole lot of sense.
It's the best handwriting I've seen you do.
That's all you have to say?
It is past midnight on the Thursday. Tomorrow is our last day, and we're getting close to wrapping things up for the day. The Reaver is looking decent. Got a lot more to do.
Decent day.
Oh yeah, well I'm saying Friday. We're getting close to wrapping things up for Friday. We've got like a whole day to come. But I can't stop myself. I have a problem, and I really like this model. Every sensible bone in my body, and Murray, I can see, and Jen are getting tenser and tenser the more that I speak. Every sensible bone in my body says, it's all right, Dave, just stipple on the gold and call it done. But this is a Titan. And Titans have cool heraldic patterns on them, don't they? Don't they, Murray?
I don't know. I actually don't know. Do they, Dave?
They're about to. All right, team, it's time to take it home. It's what, Friday? Thursday night or Friday?
I think it's Thursday.
That was Thursday.
Can't even remember.
No, this was Thursday applying this, so it was dried overnight so we could work on it more Friday.
All right, and what did we do?
We sculpted the same method we'd done previous copious amounts of time, but this would be the last time we would have to do this. But oh boy, did it look satisfying, having all of the boards lined up and finally looking red.
This was grey resin this morning. This Titan was grey resin this morning. Oh my god! It's a tabletop time cryptid. Sorry. Was I speaking in tongues again?
No, you were fine. You're all right.
Oh, cool. I won't go get checked out by an Inquisitor. Anyway, so I've been staring at runes for a while. I've forgotten which day of the week it is, but I do know that this is the last mad dash.
Yeah, this was Friday, so the day before these boards needed to go to Arc, and we had a bit of work to do.
Genuinely, the whole last 2 days of this project is kind of a delirious haze for me. I think we worked until 2 a.m. both days, basically didn't sleep. It was wild.
The studio was covered in red pigment, and we apologized for anyone who had to deal with that the next day.
We got a little bit delirious, and a lot of content got cut by our lovely editor, Liam.
Mine was very tired.
Because it was weird. It was weird. I think we were all getting a bit weird. So, we're burning that footage. Nice dry board you've got there.
Yes, it is.
Shame if something would have happened to it. Damn it!
Your powers cannot defeat me.
Well, I guess it is hydrophobic. Nothing says last minute like hair drying the board.
Try, damn you! I'd freaking forgotten how much I love doing the cockpit for this with like the dead guy and like all the like little shrine built around him. The fact that we got told that people would like lodge their snipers and Vindicare assassins in the hole here to like shoot down is so cool. That's not something I was predicting that anyone would do. That's one of those things I was hoping to like find out that people had done. Just like weird things.
To me, it's this crazy reminder of just how much we did for this build. Like, we poured everything into this.
Yeah.
It was absolutely crazy. At the time, all I could see was what was wrong with it. Like, we finished it and it just felt like a bunch of compromises.
Yeah, you started ticking off things that you know that you couldn't get done.
Yeah, and then seeing it now, it's like, it's awesome. You know, there's one or two things that I wish we could have elevated, but overall, it's pretty sick.
But like, I still have the photo that I took of the final like reveals shots that you were taking with the slider, and it's just like you like visibly blasted out of your brain at 2 a.m. But like, it's such a fun photo. It's just but like you're sort of like giddy, being like, we did it.
Yeah. Well, and here it is. It's been enjoyed for many years.
And that was one of the comments that we get a lot, which is like, why would you ruin a Titan where you could have this gaming piece?
and you just glued it into a board. People daily play on this. People request to play on this board, and they get to play under Titans.
Yeah.
That is so much worthwhile than just one person having just a Titan on their
It's
closet.
sharing them. This isn't sitting in someone's cabinet getting looked at by themselves. It's never, you know, these are Titans that are being gamed on every week, getting gamed on and played with, and people who never would get to experience it, never would be able to afford a Titan. That's the thing. A lot of people sort of said, like, you're destroying something that so many people dream of owning one day. But the reality is, this is as close as most people will ever get to real Titans.
Yeah,
and
I won't own that.
Yeah, and they get to play in and around them. They get to take photos with them. They get to enjoy them in their regular games in an open game store, free play. So I think that's great, and I think it's done what it was meant to do, even if it lives on a trestle table rather than a golden palanquin.
The plinth that it
Deserves a plinth. Next video, we build a plinth for the Titan boy. All right, should we head back?
I think so.
Cool.
Previously on Tabletop Time, asked to attend the event Arc 40K and build a giant Titan graveyard, Tabletop Time commenced the largest project of their careers.
We started off strong by cutting a Warlord Titan in half.
And then we added a Warlord Gatling gun to the board, making an epic trench.
Memorializing the epic Deus Tempestus from the book Mechanicum, we created the haunting dead legs of a Warlord Titan.
Then we tore a hole right through a Reaver Titan's body.
In the next video, we realized we had the top of a Warlord Titan to do something with, so we buried it in the ground.
And I made the ultimate honorable sacrifice as I pulled my own Warhound Titan off the shelf to build this board in time for the event, as our Reavers hadn't arrived.
Following that, we did not build a Titan. We built part of the city that has lain here in ruins ever since this epic battle.
Last video, we built a Chaos Reaver Titan in one day.
And now for the epic conclusion to Tabletop Time's massive Titan graveyard board.
It's Tabletop Time.
I'm Dave.
Oh, I'm Jen.
And we're here at ARC, and we've just brought our Titan board here and finished it. But if you want to see the journey of how that happened, we're going to show you the final stage. Whoosh. All right, team.
Hi. Hello.
It is past 10 p.m.
It is.
and it is time to start assessing
The board.
This is probably the most complete you've seen the board together, everyone. But we have some decisions to make. We put it together because we wanted to basically work out how to bring it together as a final product. Looking around the board, what do we think? What do we think about positioning, last minute chance to move things, etc.?
I think it's really important that if you're walking past and seeing this, you should be able to see something really clearly from every side of the board. So if you're standing where you are, Dave, it's a bit barren.
Yeah, so despite having like the top half of a Warlord Titan, there's actually not much going on over here. We're thinking we can fill out this area a little bit. We've got some Mechanicus terrain.
Just to give a bit of verticality, a little bit of line of sight, a little bit of something to play around.
Yeah, we were worried we weren't going to fit it in, but I think this is reason enough to fit in the hand.
Yes. Oh, if we can have a claw coming up that people can put an objective marker in, I don't care if that's not the most efficient place to put an objective marker. You can have an objective marker in the hand of a Warlord Titan. You want that more than you care about 3 inches of whatever. You want that more than anyone's ever cared about 3 inches in their life.
That's one way to put it.
All right, we're delirious. It's time to get to work. I gotta say, I've said it a few times in the video it happened in, but I'm so glad we actually have represented all 3 classes of Titans that are available at full scale. Oh no, there's the Nemesis Warbringer with the Quake Cannon.
Oh, that doesn't count.
Cancel everything.
No one cares about that. That's like some new thing they invented like 3 years ago. Reavers, Warhounds, Warlords, and Imperators. Get on it, Games Workshop. Nemesis Warbringer.
Now, the tabletop crew are working so hard showing and filming what they're working on that what they're not taking enough time to show is this. Look at this. Look at this focus room. This insane crunch craziness. It's looking like fearfully caught on camera.
Hi, camera.
Bye. Send help. And they have been working like crazy for weeks. And by the time the final video comes out, which this is in, it will have been a massive mammoth project that they are giving up. This is a commission. This is being given to House of War. It's going to be the top table at Arc 40K, and then it's going to live somewhere else. So they're putting in all this work. Dave has even sacrificed one of his Titans because of the time crunch, and they don't get anything to keep as a result. And I haven't been able to join in as much as I would like to in this project, but there is something I want to do to give them something to keep as a thanks for all the hard work they're doing. It's insane. These videos have been so cool to watch come together, and by the time I'm filming this video, they're still working on it. But by the time you see this, you've seen it all. So I got a plan. Amy has put together a little secret kit of goodies that I can use for a little project I have for them. I started off with my monster clay sculpt of the Purity wax seal. Now these typically tend to have skulls on them, so of course I sculpted a skull and added the touch of detail of a Tabletop Time logo on the forehead. Let's get culty, baby. The Purity seal in a place I was happy with, I gave it a little bit of a whack with a heat gun to make it look shiny and glossy, which would hopefully transfer to the final silicon mold for anything I pour into it to take on that shiny, glossy, waxy surface. With my little silicon mold made, it was time to create a resin pour, mixing in some acrylic paints that would create an opaque finish and hopefully a bit of a waxy effect. They turned out really cool. There was a slight tonal difference between them, which I just sort of mitigated by giving them all the misting in a glossy red spray. Then I set about handwriting the Purity seals each of the combatants in this dramatic challenge of craft. I think you're onto something good if you've made something that you would feel pretty bloody happy to get yourself. I really hope the guys enjoy these. Too much. Done it. I have made 3, I think, incredibly cool Purity seals. I kind of want one. I could make a tutorial on how to make these if you guys are interested, because pretty straightforward and really cool. Like, look at this. Oh my god. All that's left is to put together an absurd last-minute ceremony in the middle of their crunch time to award them their Purity seals. I would like to interrupt your mad dash towards the finish line. Okay. I know you still have a board to finish.
Has that been that long? I just didn't even notice that.
How many spray cans have you used today, Murray?
6.
You have all worked so hard making stuff that we don't even get to keep. It's going, we're gifting it away. You've been sacrificing. You were here till 2 a.m. last night. I wanted to give you something that you could keep. And I wanted to say thank you for how hard you've been working and something you can hold on to remember the crazy times that this board has been.
Oh, it's
the Emperor.
It's your shirt.
Underneath the royal shirt is an award.
Oh, that's so cool. Tabletop Time Purity seals.
Purity seals.
Hell yeah.
Oh my god.
That's so cool. It's got the TTT on the head. How and when did this get made?
In secret, you know.
That's so cool.
So thank you for all your hard work, and I just want to make
that's
sure
really cute. I love it. No, that's really cool.
Yeah, these are amazing.
Thanks for your hard work, guys. High fives for the Emperor.
That's on the scroll somewhere, right? High five to the Emperor.
Yes, actually, in Latin. So, yeah.
So you spelled my name right, so I don't know what to do with this.
I was going to spell it wrong. I thought it's too permanent.
Oh, thanks so much.
No worries. Now you have a board to finish.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Back to reality.
Well, with Emperor Press, we should be okay.
So at last, we got to add the hand. We were so scared that we would run out of time or out of space and not be able to add it. But we are. We're doing it right now. And I'm going to basically go through and construct it. We already used the rest of the hand as a test piece for all the streak and grime, so it's already painted, but that's fine. I gotta sort through all these digits that we have already pre-washed and find out how I can pose it. We want to have the ability to place an objective marker inside this hand. I'm going to go through the instructions and find out how we can best assemble this.
We had very ambitiously already streaking grimed the core of this hand, but we forgot all the rest of it. So Murray had a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so I decided that the coolest thing would be the hand is reaching up out of the ground. You know, it was strong Terminator vibes, and I think a lot of the comments wanted that as well. However, it wouldn't really allow for something to be placed inside it, so I went for a slightly reclined feel, which would also feel a bit more natural as the Titan has fallen to its death as well. So it's going to be palm up in the ground. I'm also going to fill in some of the gaps with Sculpted when we put it on the base to help create some level ground there to encourage people to put both an objective marker or maybe even their hero in there. I want to see people's selfies with their heroes on this board. Now, this is a Chaos Titan, so of course we had to go for the really spiky Wolverine-ish claws, and it just creates this death cage around the objective area, which just looks so cool. I want to see a Vindicare assassin poking out of this. Oh, that would be so cool. This is all assembled. We've got the big fat thumb as well. I've sculpted that so it's out of the way of anything tall that might go in there, and I'm gonna start putting on the armor plates.
I have to ask, was one of the fingers actually broken, like one of the nails?
I broke that artistically.
Nice.
Oh, and then it's streaking grime.
And alcohol. Don't forget the alcohol.
And of course, I've painted the panels on this Titan to match the
Legio Mortis.
To match the Legio Mortis Titan itself. Then just a little bit of gold all over the trim to match it in and make it look a bit more grand.
So we had decided we needed a little bit more spice device on the table in the form of some Mechanicus ruins. Jen set about making that.
Yeah, so some of these were already made up, which meant all I needed to do was spray them up and get painting. So starting off with a base spray of Chaos Black, then moving on to a cream color by Vallejo. This gave me the foundation that I'd be able to put some color on top and some weathering effects as well. After applying a brown tone wash and letting this dry, I went over the top with a cream colored dry brush. Once that was all dry, I decided to add some accent colors onto this big piece here. I saw this as like a water drum, maybe even petrol that could be near a station or something. Either way, I wanted this to be a bright color, so I painted it this beautiful vivid red. And lastly, it was adding on some weathering effects and some dry sponging. Going over the top with some rain effects and grime with Vallejo pigment paints, and then using various rust colors and silvers on top to give it a more aged look.
I think when you combine all these elements, it really pulls it together and makes it feel like part of the board. Having a few extra things to put on the board in the areas that feel sparse and make it feel a little bit more lived in is definitely a good move.
Plus, it also helps with game balancing.
So with Murray applying a beautiful signature clean black paint to the edges and letting that dry, it was time for us to really start to unravel as we put together all of the steps, all the pieces that we'd been missing, and did our last touches on the board.
Yes, it was definitely the final stretch. We were all very stressed and some chaos did ensue.
So it's probably worth just letting you watch our rambling.
Please forgive us.
All right, so it's time for a little bit of road action. And I don't mean the microphones.
Dramatic.
All right, this is not long-term glue. This is stay still while we sculpt them on glue. So the one thing that's important is the middle. This tile on the left has to go down last every time.
Give me your toe, Bean. Let me secure your toe.
Okay, so we're just making a little like end to the road just because we made a road and it didn't lead anywhere. So now the road will have an end, and that end is here. Did we decide we were going to put this like there?
I think just off to the side, because claw was going to go roughly here, I think.
So further away than that?
Yeah.
You know what? We'll go half.
You can block line of sight.
Going half
thing that's going across the earth. So it's going to be like that.
Oh, I see.
And it's like this. There's sort of some room for a tank to go here.
At the same time,
No, it's
if you didn't have kids, you could spend more money on Warhammer. Just saying. Titan or Toddler, the new game show.
Awesome. Cool. Right there. Easy.
Put your baby in the hole.
Baby in the hole. I found an issue. He doesn't actually reach the ground, therefore he doesn't reach the glue. Dave, what are you doing to me?
Murray, what are you doing to me?
Baby must fit.
Desperation.
Baby fits. My baby! I tell you, we're going in.
Still barely fits. Where's it start?
Everywhere, apparently. Problem is that the hole's like being filled in with sculptor mold, so...
Lower the baby. Oh, he's totally mushed into.
Yeah, that's what we wanted.
And now we just have to bury his feet in sculptor.
Yep.
It was after 1 a.m. on the Friday night, so Saturday morning, and we had to be at ARC at 8 a.m. the next day in Melbourne, a bit over an hour's drive away. So with less than 5 hours sleep ahead of us and the board finished, we could finally rest, sit back and take a look. And we really hope you enjoy the fruit of our labor.
Yeah, this board has been one of our most intense projects, but I can say without a doubt every single one of us and everyone in the studio has absolutely loved this process, and we hope that you have enjoyed these videos as well. Let's take a look at the final product.
Now we'll show you some more spicy reveals later in the video, but we did want to go through and give you an overview of what we've built because you'll be seeing it in a lot of shots in the next half of the video because we're going to ARC and we wanted to take you on that journey and show you what the event was like, and we had a lot of fun there and met some cool people. So yeah, come continue on this ride. All right, we finally made it to ARC.
We did it.
The Titan board is here. People have just started round one. This is going to be a super exciting day and a great opportunity to meet a whole bunch of people.
Excited!
I already met a few people who've been watching the channel and, you know, are really excited to see the board and, you know, the next 4 to 6 videos on it.
Yeah, they get a sneak peek for sure. But you've watched the journey, hopefully, and you're here to see the finale.
Let's go inside.
Yeah, come join us.
So we were at ARC and it was amazing to see our board in context. The team at Legends and Lore, a YouTube channel who do battle reports and are located in Victoria, please go check them out. Give them a subscribe. They're really cool guys. I had set up this amazing live streaming rig to live stream the event, and our board was the first board to be played on for the event.
Not gonna lie, we were a little bit scared
scared of how the battles would actually perform on this board, but seeing how models were placed and how friendly everyone was towards it was amazing to say the least.
The caliber of armies on display at ARC was honestly fantastic, and one of my biggest takeaways from the event was just a reminder of my passion for the hobby. It's easy when we're locked away in a studio painting and producing content for YouTube to forget about the sort of face-to-face joys that brought us into the hobby to begin with. Murray and I were basically getting very enthusiastic about Knights, and overall we decided that we would love to play next year.
I saw a lot of Sisters of Battle being played and it made my heart sing with joy. Also a lot of Dark Eldar, which was amazing.
It was also great to see Golden Demon alumni and legendary painter Victoria Lamb at the event. She was judging the ARC Open, their first inaugural year of their painting competition, and had brought along some minis and samples of her future Kickstarter as well. And these look super cool. I absolutely love them.
It was really great to meet Victoria and to get her inside perspective into the hobby and into miniature modeling as well. So if you don't know who Victoria is, I recommend you go check her out. Links will be in the description down below.
Another truly awesome thing I love to see at ARC was these super cool army displays that people transported their army in.
Yeah, this is kind of something new and unique. I've never seen this before, but so many people had these awesome dioramas that their armies sat in while they were waiting.
It's something I'd be interested in doing on the channel if you would all like to see it. Maybe we could make a showcase diorama, almost an Armies on Parade board for each of our armies.
That would be amazing.
Actually, Armies on Parade, that sounds like a sweet video.
Yeah.
It was at this event that Emil and Lucas from Squidmar had come along, and also we were lucky enough to bump into Trent from Miscast. It was truly awesome to be surrounded by such amazing creators and have them check out our Titan board and, well, basically come up with ways in which they could top us in future videos. Let's be honest here, the competition is rife between us YouTubers.
But I have to say, it is so satisfying to hear Squidmar say, Warlord Titan.
Great impersonation, Jen.
And we even took along a little emergency kit for any mishaps like we had at one point with the hand, but all good. Everything is fixed.
But truly, I have to say the number one highlight of the event was getting to meet all of the wonderful people who loved our work and approved of our board build. I feel like we really won a few people over. We still had some people cringing at the loss of these Titans, but people rapidly began to see that these Titans really are going to be enjoyed by everyone in a way that Titans just aren't. They're not going to be collecting dust in someone's personal collection. They are going to be played on every single day by loving hobbyists for free from all across Australia.
What was truly great about this day was the amount of people who just came up to us to talk hobby, all the things that we wanted to do, the things that we'd seen, the things that we'd painted and made. It was really cool. We would chat with people for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. It was just a great time.
Even sharing some of their cool old minis that we might be interested in, such as a Doomcrawler, a legitimate Doomcrawler, like the one I remade on the channel.
Yeah,
it's so much tinier in person.
Your little Scully tank, yeah, no, that was so cool.
Love it. I like when this kid's like, hi. There was an absolutely outstanding array of miniatures submitted to ARC Open's first painting competition, ARC Open, which was open to busts, large miniatures, and non-Games Workshop properties as well. It was super cool to see, and there was so much Australian talent on display, and it was amazing to see some of the award winners. And I recommend you go and check out ARC's Instagram page if you want to see all of those winners displayed with beautiful photography. They were so hard at work getting everything done, and I was super impressed with how they conducted themselves and how they managed the event. It was truly a treat to see all of this, and once again, it made me itch. I really want to submit something next year and be brutally compared to these amazing miniature painters.
Yeah, seeing everyone's work was really inspiring, and we were so lucky that we got to see so many amazing minis.
We're going to share with you some extra reveals so we can all enjoy this board from every angle, because of course this is the last video in the Titan board series.
And if you're down House of War's way and would like to see that they are the sponsors for this entire video series.
That's right, the board was paid for and commissioned by House of War and will be living at their game store alongside Squidmar's Metal Thunderhawk. Thank you to ARC for inviting us along as guests. It truly was special to be included in such an awesome group of people, players, and creators.
It definitely got us back in touch with the hobby, and I think it will always share a special place in our hearts.
And a final thank you to our patrons. It was great fun creating that Titan board thread in the Discord and sharing our drama, our woes, our whips, and our fun times as well as we built this board. Patrons are the cornerstone of how we can afford to make the content that we make as often as we do. So if you'd love to support the channel and you enjoy what we do, please consider joining up to our Patreon. Links are in the description. And we've given you about 10 things to click on in this video. So go click happy, go check out some cool creators, Instagrams, web stores, and all that, and have a wonderful day. Oh, but wait, there's an outro.
We're back home after an amazing arc. Hello, everyone. We're dancing in the studio. I hope you loved our journey that we went on with our massive Titan board as well. All thanks to Arc 40K and House of War. Amazing events, amazing game stores. So go give them some love and say thank you to them as well.
Yes, all this support has helped us make something incredible that now can be enjoyed by anyone in the area for free anytime.
We're done! Yay!
We are back from Ringwood and our little trip to House of War, and it was really cool seeing the Titan board. What do you think?
Yeah, like naturally I hadn't seen it there in the place where it now lives. So it was really nice to see it upstairs with all the other gaming tables. Just the fact that the staff would just, talk about how much people like it and actually come to play specifically on that board out of like the 20 that they have.
Yeah, I really think what carried for me is just the memory, and you've seen it in this video, the hectic chaos that we built this board in. It led to a sort of situation where all we could see was the floors, and we were at a point where it needed to be done, so it just got done. And then it was, because it was whisked away, right? I kind of didn't have the time to be really proud of it. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's freaking awesome. Like all the little touches, like all the little freehand and stuff that we did. It's cool. It's cool.
And I really hope, I think going forward, it would be really cool for us to make something like that again. So we've got a few ideas, a few plans for doing pretty cool multi-video builds, high scope, and really diving into making some cool stuff on the channel. So stay tuned for that. Don't worry, we won't be piling compilations on this like you all the time, Simpsons clip episodes, but we did think it would be a fun opportunity to reminisce and also to re-explore pretty much our biggest, most famous project we've ever done. It's been 2 years. Most of you won't have seen it. Make sure you subscribe because it does nothing these days, but do it anyway. It makes us feel good. One day we'll get 300k subscribers.
Or you can subscribe to our Patreon, which does a lot.
Holy schmoly. Yeah, the patrons, you're the reason we're still here. You know it. We love you. Thank you so much for supporting us, and we'll see you in the next video.
To big things.
Like Mike. Murray gets time with dog.
Hello. Hello.
We should petition for a studio dog.
Studio dog? I just want a dog.
You just want a dog?